Long ago, a mighty dragon met his end at the hands of a human champion. As he turned to dust, confusion filled his mind. He had never harmed humans. If anything, he had helped them countless times. So why did they decide to destroy him? He asked, but the humans gave no answer. With no choice left, the dragon assumed they did it for selfish reasons. Still, he had lived for ages and felt no desire to resist. As his body crumbled, he called out to the Grim Reaper, asking to be taken to the underworld for eternal rest. But the Grim Reaper had other plans. Instead of guiding his soul to the afterlife, the Reaper shoved it into the body of a newborn baby. When the dragon opened his eyes again, he was no longer the powerful creature he once was. Now he was a tiny human, looking up at his new parents and an older brother. They named him Dolan. Years passed, and Dolan grew up in a quiet village. Despite having once been killed by humans, he found himself caring deeply for them. The village was built around farming, and everyone had to work hard to survive. Every morning, Dolan helped in the fields, earning his share of food. In this village, people became adults at 18, and now that he had reached that age, he moved into his own home, learning to take care of himself completely. One afternoon, Dolan and his older brother went fishing. As they sat by the water, his brother reminded him about his upcoming trip to the swamp. Dolan nodded. He hadn't forgotten. A month ago, all the lizards in the swamp had vanished, and no one knew why. If left unchecked, this could spell trouble for the village. Someone had to investigate. Dolan acknowledges that under normal circumstances, he wouldn't have to handle this task. But with Captain Balin and the others occupied guarding the village, he doesn't want to trouble them over something so minor. Dolan's brother offers to accompany him to ensure his safety. But Dolan reassures him, saying, "That won't be necessary." Moments later, at that moment, his fishing rod jerked. He pulled hard and reeled in a large fish, the first catch of the day. Their conversation ended as they focused on fishing, and by the time they finished, Dolan had caught plenty. Back in the village, Dolan proudly showed his catch to his friends, Mill and Albert. They were impressed but also concerned. "You should be preparing for your trip," Albert pointed out. "I've been getting ready for days," Dolan assured them. Mill smiled. "Still, I had to talk the village chief into letting you go. So don't take this lightly." Dolan nodded, grateful. Mill had trained under him and trusted his ability to return safely. Tomorrow, he would leave for the swamp. Whatever was causing the strange events there, he would find out soon enough. When Dolan asks about their plans for the day, Mill mentions she'll be leading a training session with the village children, but insists he needn't worry about it, as he has enough on his plate. With that, Dolan heads home to clean and prepare the fish. As he works, his thoughts drift to the village's efforts to maintain security. Since hiring enough guards is financially impossible, every villager contributes to their collective safety. Suddenly, Eri appeared at his window, reminding him that he had magic practice. Realizing he had completely forgotten, Dolan thanked her for the reminder, and they headed to his magic instructor's home. When they arrived, Dolan was asked to show his attack magic. He chanted a spell, unleashing a strong energy blast that destroyed the target in front of him. His instructor praised his powerful attack magic, saying there wasn't much left to teach him in that area. However, she pointed out that he was weak in healing magic and planned to focus on that in his future lessons. Later that evening, Dolan finds himself in the town square, where he encounters a young girl with long, flowing white hair. The village chief introduces her as a noble guest who will be staying in the village for a while. He advises Dolan to be on his best behavior around her, given her status. One day, a girl introduced herself to Dolan. "My name is Christina," she said, extending her hand for a handshake. As soon as Dolan shook her hand, he could tell she was a highly skilled fighter. After she left, Dolan took a walk, reflecting on everything he had learned since becoming human. As a dragon, he never had to think about survival in the same way, but as a human, he had to be careful. Winter brought the danger of freezing, while summer could cause heat exhaustion. He had to stay aware of his surroundings. Soon, he arrived at his parents' home. His mother and father welcomed him warmly, along with his younger brother, Marco. Dolan had brought fresh ingredients, and his mother happily took them to prepare a delicious meal. As they ate, Dolan savored the food. He had truly missed his mother's cooking. His father chuckled and said, "You should find a wife who can cook like this, so you can enjoy meals like this all the time." Dolan had heard this before. He wasn't against the idea of marriage, but for now, he was content with staying single a little longer. Marco asks Dolan if he's still planning to investigate the swamp tomorrow. Dolan shrugs it off, saying it's not a big deal. However, his mother is deeply worried. Not only is the swamp far away, but the road leading there is notoriously dangerous. Dolan reassures her, promising to avoid unnecessary risks and insisting there's no need for such concern. His father, though more composed, reminds Dolan that as an adult, he's free to make his own choices, but he asks one thing: just make sure you come back safely to us. The next morning, as Dolan got ready to leave, the whole village gathered to see him off. He found it overwhelming, thinking it was too much for just a simple departure. Captain Balin, however, assured him that it was only right, since Dolan was taking on a task Balin would have done himself. Still, Balin admitted he felt bad about not being able to go. Mill quickly reminded him that his job was to stay and defend the village in case of a monster attack. Wanting to help in their own ways, the villagers brought gifts. Letitia, the village nun, gave Dolan a protective blessing. Ari handed him a well-prepared bento box so he wouldn't go hungry on his journey. With their warm wishes and thoughtful gifts, they all wished Dolan good luck as he set off toward the swamp. The swamp had once been home to lizards that sometimes interacted with the villagers, but they had suddenly disappeared. This strange event couldn't be ignored, so Dolan had volunteered to investigate. Even so, he couldn't shake the uneasy feeling about what he might discover. Upon reaching the swamp, Dolan places a hand on the ground, sensing the flow of elemental energies. He quickly discovers the root of the problem. The earth elemental's power has grown disproportionately strong, while the water elemental's influence has weakened significantly. This imbalance had driven the lizards to abandon their habitat. As he processes this discovery, the sound of rustling bushes snaps him to attention. However, as he readies his blade, he is shocked to find the lamia behind him. Lamia aren't usually seen around here, but as strange as it may be for her to be here, she's definitely a smash. The lamia asks Dolan if he's alone, and Dolan confirms that he came by himself, which relieves the lamia, because what she's about to do would be embarrassing if there were other people here. She tries to remember when her mother taught her to do it, and from what she remembers, she's supposed to use a charm spell and then do a bunch of movements. But she doesn't remember how to do it right. Dolan is more confused than he is charmed, but the lamia carries on to tell him that she didn't come here for a fight. But all of a sudden, a giant mud monster shows up above her, and that thing doesn't look like the calm and reasonable type. The monster lunges at the lamia, but Dolan intervenes just in time, severing its arm before pulling the lamia to safety. They crouch in silence, hidden from the prowling creature, until it finally gives up and retreats. Once the danger has passed, the lamia turns to Dolan and asks what the creature was. Dolan explains that it's a deranged earth elemental, likely the reason the swamp's lizard folk were forced to flee. He adds that a recent earthquake may have unbalanced the elemental's nature, and sadly, the swamp isn't likely to recover soon. The lamia introduces herself as Selena. Knowing that lamia are often adept at magic, Dolan asks if she can use it. Selena confirms she has magical abilities, prompting Dolan to propose teaming up to defeat the earth elemental. Initially flustered, Selena hesitates, pointing out that as an earth creature herself, most of her spells would be ineffective. However, she mentions having one spell that might work. Dolan quickly formulates a plan. He'll engage the elemental head-on while Selena supports him from a distance. They take their positions, though Selena feels uneasy about collaborating with a human she just met. With little choice, she steels herself. At Dolan's signal, they charge into action. Dolan distracts the elemental with relentless strikes, allowing Selena to cast her spell. She summons a massive serpent that coils around the elemental, binding it tightly. The distraction works, giving Dolan a critical opening. As the serpent begins to lose its grip, Dolan takes advantage of the moment. He rushes forward, infusing his sword with draconic energy. With a single powerful strike, he cleaves the elemental in two, ending its rampage. The elemental dissolves into ordinary mud, splattering everywhere and drenching Selena from head to tail. Dolan hurries to check on her, relieved to find she's unharmed. Laughing slightly at her muddied state, he assures her they'll get her cleaned up soon and promises to help restore her dignity after the messy victory. That night, Dolan sets up camp and is preparing dinner for himself and Selena. Selena is surprised that Dolan isn't even slightly scared of her, even though she's a lamia, so Dolan explains that he has met lamia before. But even so, Selena is different from those he has met before. Most lamia are wary of humans and are much more aggressive. But now that he thinks about it, there aren't any lamia villages nearby. So he's wondering what Selena is doing out here. Selena explains that it's a part of their people's tradition that when you turn, you need to leave home and go find yourself a husband. This is why she's away from her village. The Lamia race is cursed, so they only give birth to girls. And on the rare occasion that they do give birth to a boy, it's always a boy and their husband's race. The curse also gives them their snake-like bodies and makes their bodily fluids poisonous. And, as you would expect, finding a partner is pretty difficult, because there's a good chance they die from touching you because of that. She needs to make sure her husband has a body that's strong enough to resist poison. But there aren't many people like that out there. Selena's mother got lucky and managed to meet the perfect human while on a journey, and both Selena's parents got along great. Dolan smiles and says he's glad Selena is happy, but she interprets his tone as condescending, suspecting he's treating her like a child. Dolan quickly clarifies, telling her he just finds it adorable when she talks like that. Embarrassed, Selena becomes flustered, her cheeks flushing. To change the subject, Dolan pours her a bowl of his soup. He admits it might not rival his mother's cooking, but is confident she'll enjoy it. Selena takes a sip, and her eyes widen with delight. Overwhelmed by the soup's rich flavor, she starts gushing about how amazing it is. Catching herself mid-ramble, she stops abruptly, apologizing for her excitement. Dolan chuckles, reassures her, and says he's happy she likes it. As they sit by the fire, Dolan shares memories of his family, describing how they would gather around a fire on cold winter nights to enjoy this very soup. Selena senses the deep love Dolan holds for his family, a warmth that contrasts sharply with the loneliness he endured during his long years as a dragon, isolated in a dark cave. The next morning, as the sun rises, Dolan and Selena prepare to part ways. Dolan wishes her well and jokes about her finding a good husband. Before leaving, he decides to give her a gift. Recalling that Lamia thrive on life energy, Dolan channels some of his own into her. However, the potency of his draconic life force overwhelms Selena, causing her to faint instantly. Alarmed, Dolan apologizes profusely, realizing belatedly that his energy might be far too strong for her to handle. Once Selena has recovered, Dolan tells her he'll be heading back to his village. Before setting off, he invites her to visit him sometime, smiling warmly. With that, he begins his journey home, leaving Selena with a newfound sense of connection and a lingering blush. The story continues. We see two villagers come back from a night of partying when they notice a fair figure. They're surprised to discover that it's a beautiful woman, so they tell her that a village party just ended, and it's dangerous to travel alone. Selena, our snake-like heroine, cheerfully replies that she'll be fine. She's actually tougher than she looks. Unfortunately, Selena's a little too much snake for their liking, so they run for their lives. Selena tries to explain that she means no harm, but her attempt to earn the trust of humans is going to be a lot harder than she thought. Back in the village, Dolan is learning the art of potion making under the watchful eye of Grandma Maguru, alongside Eri, the red-haired prodigy. Grandma Maguru emphasizes that potion making is a delicate and precise craft, relying on rare and unstable magical ingredients. Dolan, ever the novice, proves her point by botching his potion, causing it to fizz uncontrollably and fail spectacularly. Grandma Maguru scolds him for his lack of finesse, to which Dolan jokingly replies that with a little practice and the right recipe, he could become the next Heisenberg of alchemy. Eri notices Dolan's frustration and tries to lift his spirits. She reassures him that mistakes are part of the process and reminds him of his many strengths, such as his sharp eye for medicinal herbs and his natural kindness toward the village children. Quietly, she mutters something about how cool she finds him, though Dolan only catches snippets of her words. Her encouragement strikes a chord, and Dolan promises not to give up, though he acknowledges that mastering alchemy will take time and effort. Eri, already skilled at potion making, impresses Grandma Maguru so much that she's dismissed early from class. She uses the opportunity to help her mother with chores, leaving Dolan to continue his lessons. As he watches her go, Dolan sighs, reminiscing about his former life as a mighty dragon, where potions and healing herbs were utterly unnecessary luxuries. Grandma Maguru interrupts his musings, reminding him that while his offensive magic is remarkable, he has a lot to learn about the fundamentals of alchemy. She sternly advises him that there are no shortcuts in the pursuit of knowledge, just perseverance and the occasional detour. Later, Dolan finds himself at Eri's family table, surrounded by a sea of gingers. Her father blesses the meal in honor of Myril, the goddess of earth. Though Dolan respectfully bows his head, his thoughts wander to his own jade prayer, a symbol of his past and a connection to the goddess he hasn't encountered in ages. Feeling the weight of the day, Dolan hurries through the village, determined not to be late for his magic training. But just as he reaches the training grounds, a familiar voice calls out to him. Miss Myo stands nearby, waving to catch his attention. Dolan pauses, curious about what she might want, as the story takes an unexpected turn. Miss Myo is a demi-human who's part cattle, and she reminds Dolan that milk makes bones stronger. Miss Myo says that her jugs are filled with milk and even offers to let Dolan drink straight from the tap. Miss Myo must be exhausted all the time because she provides the good people of the village with fresh milk every day, and its taste is so exquisite. Dolan struggles to say no when she offers him some. Our boy Dolan tries to resist. He really does, but in the end, there's just no saying no to Miss Myo and her special brew. Dolan thanks her for the meal and downs the whole mug full before running off. Now just a little more late for practice in his haste, he doesn't even notice Lady Christina, who watches him from afar nearby. Albert claps his hands, signaling the end of the spear lesson for the local kids. As soon as they're dismissed, the children spot Dolan and eagerly rush over to him, showing off their skills and vying for his attention. Albert shoos them away with a stern look, leaving Dolan to his thoughts. His focus shifts to the nearby forest, where he senses something familiar and unsettling. A demon's presence. Yet, instead of raising an alarm, Dolan brushes it off, claiming it's nothing. That night, curiosity drives Dolan back into the forest, lantern in hand. He wonders why a demon would be lingering in such a quiet, unassuming place. Pushing through the thick underbrush, he finally finds the source of the presence. Selena. To his surprise, she's in the middle of giving herself a sponge bath, her tail swishing nervously as she notices him. Caught off guard, Selena yelps and loses her balance, teetering dangerously. Dolan reacts instinctively, catching her before she hits the ground. For a moment, they freeze, her flustered expression meeting his steady gaze, as the forest falls silent around them. At this point, Selena is red with embarrassment and tells Dolan not to look, but this only confuses him. The awkward dragon man doesn't understand why he should look away, and he just wonders if Selena's milk tastes as good as Miss Myo's. Like the creepy he is, Dolan explains that it's only natural to crave beautiful things, but Selena has had enough of his brazen attitude. With a slap that echoes across the forest, Selena smacks a little bit of consideration for a woman's feelings into the Dragon Lord. Eager to move past the awkwardness of their encounter, Dolan shifts the conversation to why Selena is here. She explains that she had been traveling south in search of a partner but found it increasingly difficult to fit in among humans. Dolan listens attentively, genuinely happy to see her again. He admits he missed her and is determined to help however he can. That's when Dolan, ever the impulsive thinker, proposes an idea. He suggests Selena move in with him, joking that it would give him more opportunities to accidentally walk in on her. Selena is left speechless, quickly reminding Dolan that she's a monster and doubts the humans in the village would accept her. Dolan, however, dismisses her concerns with a grin. He points out that their village already coexists with plenty of unsightly creatures and insists that her kind heart and personality would win everyone over. Selena finds herself enchanted by the possibility of forging friendships with humans. When Dolan adds that he'd love to have her as a housemate, she begins to warm to the idea, though even Dolan can't ignore how flirtatious their exchange has become. Selena then reveals the true reason she's here. She had been searching for Dolan. She confesses that the spiritual energy he shared with her during their last meeting was unlike anything she had ever experienced. It was so incredible that she couldn't resist coming back for more. Dolan, both amused and intrigued, assures her that if she moves in, he'll gladly share his life energy with her whenever she needs it. As Selena eagerly accepts another dose of his spiritual energy, she revels in its power, describing it as pure bliss. Meanwhile, Dolan outlines his plan to integrate her into village life. The thought of living together excites both of them, though it's clear to Dolan now just how much their dynamic is shifting into something more meaningful. There's something of a mystery brewing. We join Mr. Clean and the guard standing over an offering, a freshly caught game. While many would see this as a free feast, the captain sees only a problem. This is the third time in as many days someone or something has left these strange offerings. As Mill studies the tracks leading away from the scene, she notes how they look like something left behind by a giant snake. There have been strange sightings in the woods recently, and this only confirms it for the captain. The village must have a lamia problem. This brings fear to everyone as Lamia are typically powerful and dangerous monsters. The 100-year-old village chief is somehow still alive, and he has all the elders convened for an emergency meeting. In the room is Dolan's father, Old Lady Maguru, and even Christina. They discuss the issue, and while they all agree that the presence of such a powerful demon could only spell trouble for their village, they can't understand why it was leading such delicious gifts day after day. Mill considers herself to be somewhat of a foodie, so she thinks about how good the fish they found tasted. Mr. Clean, who would see nightmares, gives his lieutenant the side eye and reminds her to remain focused. To him, there's only one solution. He wants to assemble their strike force to seek out and deal with this threat before it's too late. The other elders tell them to calm down before this way on his shiny bald head blinds everyone in the room. Lamia sightings were no trivial matter. A creature of such power posed a serious threat to the village's thinly spread defenses. It wasn't something that could be resolved with a quick intervention or Captain Balon's famous, all-purpose, approach. Meanwhile, Dolan, ever attuned to the village's murmurs, overheard the heated deliberations among the elders. He hadn't realized just how deep the divide between humans and monsters ran, but he remained steadfast in his belief that Selena could bridge that gap. The elders' discussion soon devolved into a chaotic argument until Grandma Maguru, the voice of wisdom, stepped in. Her commanding presence silenced the room. She acknowledged Captain Balon's diligence in safeguarding the village but pointed out that his caution had blinded him to the Lamia's peaceful intentions. Grandma Maguru revealed she had a plan to prove her point. Right on cue, Eri burst into the room, carrying a fortune-telling charm. Though her sudden arrival startled everyone, Maguru calmly examined the charm's results. After a moment of intense scrutiny, she declared with confidence that the Lamia was likely a good omen. Her call for patience and compassion swayed the elders for the time being. Dolan, pretending to work nearby, listened intently. Hearing Grandma Maguru's declaration, he felt a surge of relief and excitement. His plan was falling into place. Without hesitation, he rushed back to Selena's hiding spot in the forest. His enthusiasm was contagious as he relayed the good news. The villagers were beginning to warm up to the idea of the Lamia, and the elders were less likely to call for aggressive action. Dolan knew this was the perfect moment to advance their plan. At dawn, Captain Balon gathered the village's soldiers. His stirring speech reminded them of their duty to protect the village at all costs, emphasizing the recent Lamia sightings. Among the crowd was his son, Toro, who watched with pride as his father, clad in armor, rallied the troops. Alongside the captain were some of the village's most formidable figures: Mill, his capable right hand, and Letitia, the warrior none known for her miraculous deeds. Dolan observed the gathering from a distance, carefully evaluating the situation. Letitia's presence was a potential problem. Her unwavering faith and harsh stance against perceived evil could turn the village against Selena if things went wrong. But despite the risks, Dolan felt confident. With the village's strongest defenders present, the stage was perfectly set for the final phase of his plan. He believed in Selena's kindness and their shared resolve. If everything went smoothly, Dolan was certain that the villagers would come to see Selena not as a monster, but as one of their own. The time to prove her worth had come, and Dolan was determined to see their plan succeed. From her vantage point in the woods nearby, Selena hid and nearly wet herself from nervousness. Recalling Dolan's plan, Selena was biding her time and waiting for his cue. Dolan was meant to charge headlong into a pack of monsters he knew to be nearby, and it was Selena's job to swoop in at the very last minute and rescue him in front of everyone. Risky, but heroic. A surefire way to earn everyone's trust. A genius plan developed by our brilliant protagonist with no possible way for things to go wrong. Just then, a guard comes running out of the woods, howling in fear because he was being chased. Balon wasted no time and shouted orders to his guardsmen, getting them ready to face the Lamia he assumed. He's coming. Dolan hasn't given the signal to his friend hiding in the bushes, and Selena wonders if another Lamia has appeared. However, what emerges from the woods is no snake. A massive, ferocious beast known as an armored bear lets loose some monstrous roars as it topples trees and charges into the clearing. Balon is shocked, and he knows that his men can't handle this threat head-on. He orders the retreat, but in the confusion, Toro proves to be the most useless character in this anime, and he's noted to the floor. Seeing little Toro as a snack because his father has already given up on him, Winnie the Pooh rabies begins to advance on the boy. Luckily, Dolan isn't a coward like the bald guy, so he rushes in, but he realizes that he won't make it in time. Unfortunately, Dolan decides that he will have to use his dragon powers in front of everyone. But Selena comes out of nowhere to take the monster's attack. Selena takes a nasty wound in the process, and everyone is shocked to see that a Lamia risked its life to protect humans. Despite her wounds, Selena summons the strength to turn her cursed gaze upon the armored bear. Channeling the ancient power of her Lamian heritage, she casts a spell that seizes control of the bear's mind. Her voice, calm yet commanding, instructs the beast to return to the forest. The bear, once snarling with rage, becomes docile, its aggression dissipating in moments. It obeys without hesitation, lumbering back into the woods. The villagers stand frozen in shock, unable to comprehend the power they've just witnessed. Selena's evil eyes, a formidable and mysterious magic, had saved them all. Blood streaks down her back, but Selena brushes her pain aside, her only concern being Dolan and young Toro. Meanwhile, Captain Balin and his guards finally shake off their stunned silence. Balin, still distrustful, shouts for Selena to step away from Dolan and Toro. Dolan, however, sends Toro back to his father while remaining by Selena's side. His stance is unwavering. He argues passionately that he won't abandon the girl who saved their lives, even if she is a Lamia. Balin, livid at Dolan's defiance, insists that demons are inherently dangerous. But Dolan stands firm, shielding Selena from the growing hostility. His resolve begins to sow doubt in the minds of others, including Mill, who starts to question whether Selena is truly a threat. Seeing the tension escalate, Balin decides to question Selena directly. Selena answers with honesty and humility. She admits that she was the one who had been leaving gifts for the village and explains her journey. She reveals that she is half-human and had been seeking companionship among humans, longing to learn from them and forge bonds. With tears streaming down her face, Selena kneels before Balin and the villagers, her hands clasped in a plea for understanding. "I saved them because I couldn't bear to see their families grieve," she cries. "I would never harm humans." Her genuine anguish and selflessness move some of the villagers, but Balin remains skeptical. He turns to his sister, Letitia, for guidance. Letitia, deep in prayer, suddenly speaks, her voice trembling with emotion as she relays a divine message from Myril, the Holy Earth Mother. The goddess declares Selena to be no enemy, urging the villagers to welcome her as one of their own. Letitia also notes Selena's gesture of goodwill, keeping her cursed eyes closed to avoid frightening the villagers. At her urging, Selena hesitantly opens her eyes, revealing not malice but a vulnerability that touches everyone present. The moment shifts the atmosphere. The villagers, guards, and even Balin begin to see Selena not as a monster, but as someone deserving of their trust and compassion. The seeds of harmony between human and Lamia are sown, and Dolan, standing proudly by Selena's side, knows they have taken a vital first step. But the moment she does, Selena collapses. After she awakens, Selena is led to her new house in the village, courtesy of its grateful people. Even Balin has helped furnish the cozy place with some cushions and plushies as a means of both an apology for doubting her and a thank you for saving his son. The cursed child curses the whole place just by speaking, and she says that they don't really know a lot about Lamia, so as good neighbors, they should get to know each other more. Dolan steps forward and offers his hand to Selena. The scene is made to look like it's a good thing that he just lied to everyone that cares about him, and the two supposed strangers pretend to meet for the first time all over again. The story continues. We see Selena and Balin then cheerfully gets to know one another. Dolan thinks about what just happened, and he realizes that his good friend Myril really did a massive solid that night. Dolan goes into his astral form, which he hasn't used in ages, so he can escape his hideous human body and pay a visit to his most holy of allies. Dolan can't get away from himself fast enough, and his form takes on that of his old self, the mighty blue-eyed ghost dragon. There, beyond the realm of mortals, he finds a city in the sky. Waiting for the overly muscular dragon is Myril, the mother goddess. She looks like she just came from a celestial fashion show, and she is a longtime friend of our hero. Dolan accidentally refers to her as goddess, and Myril teases him about how he must be taken to his new life very well if he started calling her that. Showing off a lot of heavy cleavage development, Myril says that she already knows why he is here. It's about the Lamia. Dolan thanks her profusely for helping his legless reptile friend, and he wonders how the goddess managed to recognize him and his new life as a boring and poorly dressed farm boy. Myril says it was easy enough. When she felt his spirit in the prayers of the villagers, she notes that his spirit is now full of life and joy, whereas his old self was tired of living. Dolan nodded thoughtfully, recalling the moment the hero's blade pierced his heart. It was oddly akin to the relief one feels after enduring a drought of good anime, an end to an agonizing wait. As a human, he had learned much about mortal existence, the relentless struggles of their fleeting lives and the weight of their ephemeral time on Earth. These experiences had undeniably changed him, and Myril could see that the transformation was for the better. With a knowing smile, she spread her peculiar wings, which were somehow attached to her lower back, and soared gracefully toward him. She expressed her happiness for Dolan's newfound peace and extended her wish for Selena to find her own joy. With a final word of thanks, Dolan returned to his human form, weightless, muscular, and annoyingly cool, just in time to be jolted awake by the arrival of his favorite snake girl. Bursting through the door with infectious energy, she reminded Dolan of the promise he made to plant potatoes with Christina in the bustling capital city. Meanwhile, elsewhere, a young woman hurried through the grand halls of an academy, clutching a letter tightly. Around her, tiny fairies, no larger than a hand, flitted about like industrious mosquitoes, performing all manner of tasks, from organizing books to delivering messages. One particularly harried fairy handed the letter off to Olivia, the Academy's meticulously dressed dean and a woman who exuded professionalism despite the chaos around her. Olivia, sharing the young woman's enthusiasm, snapped her fingers to open the letter in a display of casual magic. The parchment unfolded itself, revealing insights into Christina's life in the village of Bern. In the village square, a lively crowd gathered to watch Christina engage in daily combat training. Facing Mill, a skilled opponent, Christina impressed onlookers by holding her ground against the village's seasoned vice-captain. The sparring escalated, with Mill unleashing her full strength. A whirlwind of strikes and slashes culminated in Christina disarming Mill, sending her sword skittering across the ground. Mill, shocked but graceful in defeat, accepted Christina's praise. When Christina called her swordsmanship beautiful, Mill was momentarily flustered, wondering if there was more to the compliment than met the ear. Before the awkwardness lingered, the ever-efficient Mr. Clean arrived to mop the training area and declared it time for a feast to celebrate Christina's victory. As the festivities began, Christina marveled at the warmth and acceptance of the villagers. It was unlike anything she'd ever known, and she couldn't help but feel a sense of belonging. That night, amidst the celebratory atmosphere, the village became a haven for her. As local girls gushed over Christina's striking appearance, Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson, who had been watching, seized the moment to approach her. Before she could respond, Captain Balin, the renowned party enthusiast, swooped in, drawing attention with his boisterous energy. His comrades quickly intervened, warning Christina to steer clear of his antics. Balin, undeterred, redirected his party spirit toward two other willing participants. Selena, however, seemed unsettled. Watching the revelry unfold, she couldn't shake the feeling that something important was being left unsaid, a shadow of unease lingering beneath the night's festivities. Later that night, Christina watches as the Three Stooges leave for the night. Unable to sleep, probably because she's wearing literally all of her clothes to bed, Christina comes up with the perfect idea to help her relax. Intense sword practice, swinging her blade under the moonlight. The white-haired noblewoman comes across Dolan and Selena strolling along like a couple of insomniacs with nothing better to do. Our favorite snake person notices right away that something is wrong, so she offers to show Christina her new home. Selena goes straight for her bed, her favorite part of the house, and invites Selena to join her. This moves Dolan. He encourages her to do so, but warns that while the bed might be nice for Lamia, it might not suit a human so well. Christine is undaunted and plops right down into the hay and cushions. Turns out that it's pretty comfortable after all. Selena says that the bed was Baldhead's idea, and Christina is surprised. Being quite the chatterbox, Selena explains that the cow woman is actually Balin's wife. Everyone loves her huge jugs of milk, and all the villagers even compete over who can drink the most. As the girls get to talking, it turns out that there's a lot Christina doesn't know about the people of the village. Dolan is soon pulled into the bed as well to join in on all the juicy gossiping. The three of them happily chatted the night away, and Dolan thinks about how all those years of dating simulator practice have finally paid off. The next day, Christina joins Selena at the tavern, and they find Jeff Bezos on steroids boasting about how much he can drink. Turns out he wasn't talking about alcohol, but his wife's milk. Balin proved to be into some really weird stuff as he really enjoys watching other guys drink his wife's milk, and he tells his buddies to enjoy his wife's all-you-can-drink dairy bar. Christina then explains that she has come to taste Miss Mew's world-famous milk. Mew wants her to taste her freshest batch, so she rushes off to milk herself. Evil Jeff Bezos is impressed by how much of his wife's milk Christina was able to drink, so he challenges her to a good old-fashioned drink-off. Christina eagerly accepts his challenge, but tells him not to get upset when she drains his wife's cans empty. The two knock back mug after mug, and everyone watches in horror as they realize how weird this all is. Soon, it becomes clear that the longtime dairy champion is having trouble keeping up with Christina, and Balin eventually collapses in defeat. Everyone then celebrates and has a good time. Just when it seemed like things couldn't get any weirder, Mew introduces her daughter. Mew is planning to launch a new product to her dairy line, and she wants some milk-drinking champions to get the first taste. Mill hands over the milk, and Christina doesn't hesitate. She loves this stuff, and when she asks for seconds, Mill is positively overjoyed. As that terribly awkward scene comes to a merciful end, we return to the capital. Dean Olivia is delighted to see her favorite student, Christina, forming new friendships, but her mood darkens when she hears rumors spreading about Christina associating with Alamia. The one-eyed witch Kieran approaches Olivia, her presence unsettling as always. Kieran brings up Selena, expressing her concerns about the dangers of allowing Alamia into the village. Olivia, however, reminds Kieran that her role as a government agent does not include micromanaging small village affairs. Kieran isn't convinced. She argues that humans should not coexist with creatures as dangerous as Lamia and points to the recent string of disappearances in the region as evidence of potential threats. Olivia tries to calm the situation, citing the divine blessing from Myril that allowed Selena to live among the villagers peacefully. But Kieran refuses to drop the issue. Summoning the Lord of the Land, an awkward figure with a ridiculous hat, Kieran ensures the matter escalates. The Lord, Gouda, wastes no time siding with Kieran. He declares that action is needed and decides to send his soldiers to Burn Village to reassert his authority. Back in Burn Village, Selena and Christina are busy planting potatoes, their unique methods drawing amused looks from Dolan. Selena's approach is unconventional and inefficient, while Christina uses her brute strength to punch holes into the dirt like a warrior. Their agricultural antics are interrupted when a commotion erupts in the village square. Gouda has arrived, along with his soldiers and his oversized hat. Gouda accuses Dolan of recklessly bringing a dangerous Lamia into sacred territory. Before Dolan can respond, Priestess Letitia steps forward to defend Selena, reminding Gouda of the goddess Myril's blessing. Gouda, however, claims he isn't challenging the goddess's will but insists on verifying that Selena poses no threat, a statement that seems to contradict itself. Dolan grows suspicious of Gouda's true intentions, recognizing that the absence of a royal elimination squad suggests an ulterior motive. The pompous lord declares that Selena must accompany him to the capital for evaluation. Dolan immediately volunteers to join her, arguing that he is responsible for her presence in the village. Gouda agrees, stating that Dolan's involvement will simplify matters. As Selena and Dolan are taken away, Christina watches with growing frustration. Determined to intervene, she decides to seek help from the headmaster. Enchanting herself with a speed spell, Christina races off in a blur, resolved to ensure her friend's safety. Meanwhile, Selena and Dolan exchange a look of determination. Whatever awaits them in the capital, they are ready to face it together. On the wagon ride to the city, Selena puts on a brave face, but our dragon genius overhero knows what she is thinking. He tells her not to worry and draws her close to him. It's something his mother used to do when he got worried, and it always helped. Dolan lets her know that everything's going to be okay. If at any point she feels sorry for being who she is, she can expect a stern lecturing from him that lasts all night long. Suddenly, Dean Olivia's doors fly open, and her teeth spray everywhere as her favorite supercharger student crashes in. Christina is there to talk about what's happened to Selena, and she won't take no for an answer. Olivia's fairy slaves serve Christina some tea, and she explains that this isn't Gouda's doing. It's the witch Kieran. Kieran is a higher-up, and she suspects that Selena is involved in the recent disappearances. Christina defends her, and Olivia agrees that the scaly snake girl could not be involved. Unfortunately, if Kieran decides to put the blame on her, then there's nothing anyone can do. Christine is horrified to hear this, and we get a glimpse of the evil witch. She's obviously up to something, and we see that the soldiers escorting Dolan and Selena are planning something sinister as well. The story continues. We see moments later, in secret, Dolan and Selena speak with Gouda, who looks just like a mushroom. Whatever their walking mushroom says really shocks our two heroes to their core. We next see Christina, whose glasses are missing all the important parts, discussing the matter of Selena's abduction and Kieran, the witch who had brought her to the city under suspicion. Christina fumes at the injustice unfolding, but despite her authority, Dean Olivia knows she can't act without risking an abuse of power. To complicate matters, Olivia mentions a separate, pressing concern that demands her attention. Meanwhile, Dolan and Selena arrive in the bustling city of Galois, where Kieran waits for them, standing in her signature stoic pose. The one-eyed which seems almost amused as she greets them, her surprise evident when she notices Dolan, the unassuming hero she often overlooks. She bids a small mushroom man to finish his report before extending an invitation to Dolan and Selena to join her for dinner. The banquet laid before them is nothing short of exquisite. Selena's eyes light up at the sight of the sumptuous feast, but Dolan remains suspicious, cutting straight to the chase. Kieran surprises him by assuring that the paperwork finalizing Selena's right to stay in the village will be completed by morning. For now, she insists they relax and enjoy the meal. Her unexpected kindness eases Selena's worries. She had feared being executed simply for being a lamia. Kieran waves off such fears, explaining that while she initially suspected Selena of using her charm to manipulate the villagers, meeting her in person has dispelled those doubts. Despite Kieran's reassurances, an unsettling undertone lingers, accentuated by ominous music in the background. Elsewhere, back in Dean Olivia's office, the Mushroom Man arrives unannounced, his arrival accompanied by his own eerie soundtrack. Christina is startled by his sudden presence, but before she can question him, Governor Gouda enters. Calm yet deliberate, the governor insists on speaking with Olivia immediately. Back at the dinner table, Kieran inquires if Dolan and Selena are enjoying the wine. Dolan is visibly tipsy, though something feels off. Kieran shifts her focus to Selena, marveling at her beauty. Her golden hair, radiant blue eyes, and shimmering scales. There's something almost predatory in her tone as she praises the lamia's unique features. At last, Kieran reveals her second eye, a gleaming symbol of malice, as she declares her sinister intent. She can't wait to devour every inch of Selena. The wine, it turns out, was spiked with a powerful sedative, and before Dolan and Selena can react, they collapse into unconsciousness. Back at the library, the governor hesitates before divulging the truth, but ultimately decides it's time to break the silence about the contract Kieran made him sign. He reveals that the city has been plagued by a string of disappearances, young women vanishing without a trace. Christina has heard of these incidents but notes that none of the missing have been found dead. Impatient as ever, she demands to know how this ties back to Selena. Gouda explains the disturbing rumor of an ancient mage residing in the city, said to be over 1,000 years old. Christina's first assumption is Olivia, but Gouda quickly corrects her. This figure, though human, has lived far beyond a natural lifespan, likely through forbidden magic. Gouda suspects the mage has been stealing the youth of these kidnapped women to sustain their life, and now, rumors suggest the lamia might be their next target. Alarmed, the group decides they must move quickly. Together, Christina, Gouda, and the Mushroom Man resolve to confront Kieran at her estate and put an end to her twisted plans. Back at the freak show, we discovered that, to no one's surprise, Kieran has an underground plot dungeon beneath her home. Selena is laid out on a table, about to be dissected in the name of fine cuisine while Kieran looms over her, mouth practically watering at the thought of the vitality she's about to cut out of our poor lamia. Picking up a scalpel, Kieran figures she'll just peel off some of the skin first and decide what to do with the rest later. Thankfully, Dolan forces the ketamine out of his system and wakes up. Though he was just bound and tied up earlier, he easily tears apart his trappings and warns Kieran not to touch Selena. Dolan notices that Kieran has been doodling on the ground, but he is horrified to realize that her little drawings are made of blood. It seems that Kieran has been doing this for a long time now. Kieran quickly realizes that Dolan is not as human as he might appear. Dolan demands to know how many people the witch has slain, but Kieran is unapologetic as she reveals that she stopped counting after her 50th victim. She has been experimenting with life for hundreds of years, taking bits and pieces of her subjects to renew herself and retain her beauty. Her leg, her arms, even her skin, each taken from girls of all manner of races. She's been doing a pretty good job Frankenstein-ing herself together because she doesn't look a day over 30. Kieran remains unsatisfied, driven by an insatiable desire to perfect her beauty. She reveals her plan to use Selena's unique essence to enhance her appearance further. Dolan, disgusted, declares that such magic should be outlawed. Kieran, unfazed, boasts that her research has earned the recognition of powerful figures. Dolan labels her an abomination, and to his surprise, Selena agrees. The witch is shocked that both of them have resisted her potent sedatives. Selena accuses Kieran of cruelty for ruining the lives and dreams of the young women who had come before her. Kieran, however, dismisses the accusation, claiming she did them a favor by giving their lives meaning. Selena, appalled, asserts that Gouda was right about Kieran, though she remains puzzled by the governor's cryptic warnings. Kieran, like many villains, falls victim to her need to monologue. It's her undoing. Dolan reveals he's been concealing a small transmitting device, a gadget capable of broadcasting their conversation across great distances. This is how Gouda uncovered Kieran's vile schemes in the first place. At that moment, a white knight bursts into the room, flanked by the royal SWAT team. They reveal that this entire situation has been an elaborate sting operation. Gouda and Dean Olivia had been working together to expose Kieran's crimes. When Kieran instructed Gouda to falsify paperwork, it was to fabricate evidence framing Selena for a crime. The witch had planned to claim self-defense in killing Selena, using the forged reports as proof. Dolan is horrified, struggling to fathom how someone could fall so far into darkness. But Kieran, bitter and unrepentant, explains that the blessed can never understand the struggles of the cursed. She recounts her youth, a time when she was consumed by insecurity over her appearance. Instead of self-acceptance or meaningful change, Kieran turned to dark magic. Her obsession with beauty led her to gruesome acts, harvesting traits from others to craft her ideal form. Around the room are horrifying displays of her cruelty, remnants of her victims preserved grotesquely, submerged in strange liquids. Kieran's sins have transformed her, and with a wicked grin, she reveals her final form. Her skin tears, her body contorts, and she becomes an amalgamation of those she has consumed, a monstrous testament to her madness. Kieran lunges at Selena, but Dolan quickly realizes the depths of her depravity. This form, blending countless lives into one, could only result from a deal with the devil. The grotesque creature unleashes chaos, attacking the guards. Despite her horrific appearance, Kieran still believes she is beautiful, even offering the guards her beauty secrets. Selena steps up, using her cursed gaze to paralyze the witch momentarily, giving the soldiers a chance to retreat. The battle intensifies as Kieran breaks free of Selena's hold, launching a vicious assault. Christina arrives just in time, summoning her enchanted blade, El Spada. With a powerful strike, she slices through Kieran's grotesque appendages, turning the tide of the battle. The fight is far from over, but the heroes stand united, ready to end Kieran's reign of terror once and for all. Mushroom wishes that he could be as beautiful as the witch one day, but Olivia tells them that this is no time to be impressed. Kieran unleashes her evil magic, but Christina manages to hold it back just long enough for Dolan to complete his own magic doodles, minus the blood. Before he lets loose his ultimate attack, Dolan asks the witch a poignant question. Is she happy? Kieran's subsequent rant about her perfection and overwhelming power is enough to settle matters. Dolan gets some character development as he's no longer afraid of work culture, and he begins to shame the witch. He declares that she stole the dreams of several people, and blood-stained hands like hers can never obtain beauty. Dolan then fires off a powerful offensive magic called the Celestial Javelin, and it completely annihilates the monster once and for all. The girls are amazed by our boy, but he just strikes the most bland hero pose ever. With that traumatic event behind them, Dolan and Selena return to an ordinary life in the city. Selena is trying to study with Dolan's guidance, but all the book reading hurts her tiny brain. Dolan encourages her by saying that she won't be dumb for much longer. She'll be able to read them right in this nation's language, and he can't wait to see what she comes up with. Christina joins Selena and Dolan for tea, praising Selena for how much progress she's made. Olivia and Portobello arrive next, thanking the group for their efforts in stopping Kieran's dark schemes. Dolan, ever humble, credits Olivia for providing the antidote to Kieran's poison, joking about how much baby oil the witch might have used on them if they'd stayed unconscious. Gouda steps forward with a handful of papers. One is a permit granting Selena the freedom to slither or stroll through the city as she pleases. The other is a registration form, officially allowing her to settle down in Burn Village and pursue the peaceful life she's dreamed of. Overwhelmed with gratitude, Selena beams with happiness, even teasing Gouda about how much less ridiculous they look without that oversized hat. The dean reveals there's someone else eager to meet them. Enter Denzel, Grandma Meguru's son, who has been keeping up with the village's events through her letters. He's thrilled to finally meet the Lamia he's heard so much about. Denzel congratulates them on their victory and offers to give Selena and Dolan a tour of Galois. The tour, however, doesn't go as planned. Many townsfolk, having never seen a Lamia before, react with fear and unease. Selena, ever the optimist, hides her disappointment behind a warm smile, declaring her intent to pick up a few souvenirs before they leave. As the day winds down and their departure nears, Denzel and Olivia approach Dolan with a proposition. They invite him to enroll at the Magical Academy, emphasizing that his untapped potential deserves proper training. With their guidance, he could expand his abilities, both intellectually and spiritually, making him an even greater protector of his home and loved ones. Dolan is visibly tempted by the offer, though Selena's unease is apparent. The Mushroom Man, as persuasive as ever, tries to sway Dolan, but Dolan remains uncertain. When Christina asks what ties him so strongly to Burn Village, Dolan explains that he feels unfinished business there, a calling he can't ignore. Later, as they reflect on the day, Dolan seeks Christina's thoughts on the academy. She agrees with Denzel, noting that the school could help him reach new heights. While Dolan mulls over his choices, Selena's reluctance to see her cherished reincarnated dragon leave so soon is evident. The decision weighs heavily on Dolan. The allure of the academy is strong, yet the simplicity and bonds of the village tug at his heart. For now, Burn Village and its people remain his anchor, even as the possibilities of the wider world loom on the horizon. Meanwhile, somewhere in the forest, an unsuspecting elf spies on an army of what seems to be monstrous ants flooding the area within the shimmering portal they pour out of. Stand for mysterious figures. The story continues. We see the first to encounter these monsters is an elf scout who happened to be in the area, but he stood no chance against them and was immediately killed. His partner heard the commotion and rushed over to his side to check on him, but by the time he arrived, his friend was already dead, and he became the next victim of the monsters. Sometime later, the rest of the elf scouts come to investigate the area, and the leader is horrified to find that his men have been completely massacred. Among the bodies, he finds one elf that is still alive, but he's barely breathing and won't last much longer in his current condition. The leader asks what did this to him, so just before the injured elf dies, he tells the leader that there was a horde of monsters here. Back in Burn Village, Christina and Dolan assist with swordsmanship lessons for the younger kids. Selena, watching from nearby, enjoys the sight of Dolan sparring with the children but can't shake her unease about the possibility of him leaving for the academy one day. Her thoughts are interrupted when a group of kids begins playing with her tail, prompting her to chase them around with playful laughter. Dolan smiles at the sight, happy to see Selena bonding with the children. He silently hopes this peaceful harmony lasts a long time. Christina, however, has a different plan in mind. She approaches Dolan with a request. She wants to venture into the forest. She's heard rumors of dangerous creatures in the area and sees it as a perfect opportunity to test her strength. Dolan hesitates, pointing out that the forest isn't a place to wander into lightly. Christina counters with practical reasoning. Albert has been complaining about limited grazing space for his pigs, and clearing out some of the monsters would allow the pigs to safely forage for food. Fighting would just be an added perk. Unable to argue with her logic, Dolan agrees to lead the way. They're joined by Balin, Selena, and a small group of soldiers for added protection. As they enter the forest, Selena notices the heavy armor worn by the soldiers and asks why it's necessary for such a brief trip. Dolan explains that caution is vital, especially since reports of powerful monsters in the area have been increasing. While he, Selena, and Christina can handle most threats, it's better to be safe than sorry. After guiding Albert's pigs to a suitable grazing spot, Balin and the soldiers move ahead to scout the area. Balin warns his men to stay alert, emphasizing that the forest can be unpredictable. Despite the warning, one soldier chases after a pig that has wandered into the bushes. The soldier quickly regrets his decision to separate from the group when he comes face to face with a massive, blade-fanged tiger. The predator, its razor-sharp teeth dripping with hunger, lunges for him. At the last moment, Balin intervenes, swinging his hammer to knock the beast aside. The tiger retreats into the shadows, and the immediate danger passes. Balin reprimands the soldier for his carelessness, shouting that such recklessness could have cost him his life. However, in his frustration, Balin fails to heed his own advice. Before he can react, a massive ant-like creature ambushes him from behind, its sharp mandibles snapping dangerously close. The forest, it seems, is alive with threats, and the group realizes their mission has become far more perilous than expected. Christina, Selena, and Dolan all hear the sound of Balin getting attacked, so they rush over to make sure he is all right, and find Balin on the ground with an ant monster in front of him. The ant monster tries to attack them as well, but before it does, Dolan hits it with an energy blast that temporarily knocks it out. Christina asks what kind of monster it is since she's never seen anything like it, but Dolan tells her that the thing isn't actually a monster. It's a demon. It's only a low-rank scout demon, but regardless, it is still incredibly powerful and agile, so they need to be careful if they want to defeat it. Dolan tells her he will keep it busy, and while he does, he wants Christina to land the killing blow. He makes the first move and fires another energy bolt at the demon, and while it's distracted, Christina charges forward and slashes it in half. Even though the demon has been defeated, Christina is left confused as to how something like that could have gotten here in the first place. But Dolan asked her to keep this a secret until they figure out more about what happened. Later that day, the group returns to Burn Village, where an air of unease hangs heavy. The villagers gather anxiously, waiting to hear news of Balin and the injured soldiers. The village chief finally speaks, explaining that while Balin and the others sustained serious injuries, their lives are not in immediate danger. With time and care, they are expected to recover. Dolan and Christina recount the events in the forest, mentioning the bladed tiger and a strange, unidentified creature that attacked them. Though they provide few details about the second monster, the village chief's expression grows grave. If even Balin, the village's strongest soldier, was overpowered, it doesn't bode well for anyone else's chances against such threats. A short while later, Grandma Meguru arrives at the town hall with an update. Balin has regained consciousness and is expected to make a full recovery, though the wound inflicted by the mysterious creature was severe. Concerned murmurs ripple through the hall. Something dangerous is brewing in the forest. Dolan steps forward and declares his intent to investigate the forest further, but Grandma Meguru quickly shuts him down, worried for his safety. If Balin couldn't handle the monster, what chance does Dolan have? She suggests the forest be declared off-limits, hoping the danger will stay confined. Dolan understands her caution but argues that ignoring the problem will only leave the village in a perpetual state of fear. Reluctantly, Grandma Meguru agrees to let him go, but only if he takes someone with him. Christina volunteers immediately, but the village chief firmly denies her offer. As a student under the village's care, her safety is paramount, and he cannot risk her getting hurt. Christina respects the chief's reasoning, but Dolan still needs a companion. Selena steps forward and offers to accompany him, citing her cursed eyes and magical abilities as assets. Dolan agrees, grateful for her support. Before they finalize their plans, the village chief makes one additional request. If their lives are ever in jeopardy, they must retreat. Their safety is the highest priority. With the terms set, Dolan and Selena prepare to leave at dawn. As they walk toward the forest the next morning, Selena feels a mix of determination and nervousness. She's eager to prove her worth and refuses to let her emotions distract her. Just as they approach the forest's edge, Dolan stops abruptly, sensing a presence. It turns out to be Christina, casually strolling nearby. Dolan confronts her, reminding her of the village chief's instructions to stay away from the forest. Christina insists her walk is unrelated, though her determination betrays her true intentions. She admits that while she promised to avoid the forest, her love for the village compels her to act. If something threatens Burn, she wants to help protect the people she cares for. Dolan sighs, appreciating her resolve but reminding her to respect the chief's wishes. Christina reluctantly agrees to stay at the forest's edge, promising to remain vigilant and offer support if needed. With that, Dolan and Selena press forward into the forest, their mission to uncover the truth behind its dangers just beginning. Selena doesn't see much of a problem with letting Christina join them since she's a capable fighter, and Selena can understand Christina's feelings when she says she wants to be helpful to the village. Besides, since she's here anyway, she might as well join their team. Christina thanks both of them for being so understanding, and together the three begin slaying monsters as they make their way through the forest. After they dealt with the spider monsters, Christina comes across another monster that looks very menacing, so she's about to attack. But Selena stops her because this one is actually pretty calm. Selena offers it some food, and Dolan seems to be getting along great with monster children as well. So since the monsters aren't a threat, Selena sets up a picnic for all of them to share. Christina is amazed by how calm Selena is even though there's a huge monster right next to them. But Selena points out that she is also a monster, so she doesn't see much to be scared about. She encourages Christina to try feeding the baby so she can see that they are completely harmless. So Christina gives one of the babies an apple, and it begins happily munching on it. Christina now sees how cute monsters like these can be, and Selena explains that they will probably just be out here looking for food, which means something must have driven them out of their usual feeding grounds. And if the situation is serious enough that even powerful monsters are being affected, it's even more reason for them to get down to the bottom of this. Christina takes a bite of the sandwich Dolan prepared for her, and her eyes widen in surprise. "This is amazing," she exclaims. Dolan explains with a modest smile that the bread was baked by his mother, while he took the time to cure the meat himself. Selena, watching Christina savor the sandwich, comments on how effortlessly beautiful Christina looks even while eating. Dolan adds, "Christina has a certain charm. No matter what she does, Christina blushes at the compliment, and Selena, suddenly inspired, asks Christina for advice on how to be charming like her. Maybe it'll help me find a husband," Selena says earnestly. Christina, caught off guard, stammers that she doesn't have any special techniques for charm. Dolan quickly reassures Selena, "You don't need any secret tricks. You're already great the way you are." Selena's mind starts to race. If Dolan thinks I'm fine the way I am, does that mean he finds me charming? And if he finds me charming, does that mean he wants to make me his wife? She wonders, her heart fluttering. Before Selena's thoughts spiral further, rustling from the bushes catches everyone's attention. They immediately go on high alert, only to find a tiny fairy emerging timidly. The fairy, her voice trembling, warns, "You need to leave. Danger is coming." No sooner does the warning leave her lips than a group of demons appears. Christina and Dolan spring into action, weapons ready. The demons are far more numerous than before, forcing the group to split up. Christina takes on the wave of demons at the front, her blade flashing as she cuts them down. Dolan holds the rear, intercepting a demon attempting to flank them. However, just as he finishes one off, another lunges at him. His sword, embedded in the first demon's skull, is stuck. With no time to retrieve it, Dolan reluctantly taps into his draconic powers, his arm transforming into a dragon's claw. He dispatches the second demon with a crushing blow before reverting to his human form. "Using my dragon abilities makes these fights a lot easier," Dolan admits, though he doesn't seem entirely pleased. Meanwhile, Christina is nearly overwhelmed by her group of demons. Just as one lunges for her, Selena steps in, casting a powerful spell that eliminates the final threat. With the battle over, the group turns their attention to the fairy. She introduces herself as Marl and expresses her gratitude. "Thank you for saving me from those demons," she says. Marl explains that the demons started chasing her out of nowhere. If this is what they've been doing in the forest, it explains why the usual monsters have been fleeing their territories. The group listens intently as Marl continues. "But those demons you fought, they're just scouts. That means something much stronger is coming. And if it arrives, it could spell disaster for the entire region." Dolan, Christina, and Selena exchange grim looks, realizing that their troubles are far from over. Christina asked Marl if she can give them any useful information about the demon because they want to help her. And Marl appreciates the offer, but she's not supposed to talk to outsiders. Just then, Dolan senses a group closing in on them, but it doesn't feel the same as the demons. Christina has no idea where these people are, but she wants to draw her sword in order to be ready for a possible fight. However, before she does, Dolan stops her and says the people surrounding them aren't showing any signs of hostility, so he doesn't want to provoke them. He leaves his weapon on the ground, so Christina does the same. And once the elves are confident that Dolan and the others are not an immediate threat to them, they show themselves. But they still don't trust the humans, so they order Marl to get away from Dolan. The story continues. We see Marl goes up to the elf squad leader, Geo, and tries to get him to calm down, saying that Dolan and his friends just saved her from the monster. But Geo is already aware of that, judging by their surroundings. Selena realizes that they must have wandered into the elven forest, which would explain why the elves reacted to them with such hostility. But Dolan thinks everything will be fine since they didn't come into the forest with the intention of fighting. However, as a precaution, he tells the two to get behind him in case things turn violent. Geo approaches Dolan, and the first thing he does is thank him for saving Marl. But that aside, he still needs to know what business two humans and a lamia would have in an elven forest. Dolan explains calmly that he hails from Burn Village, which has recently suffered attacks from a type of monster they had never encountered before. He deduced that the problem likely originated from this forest, prompting him and his companions to investigate. Despite having good intentions, Dolan politely apologizes for trespassing on elven territory without prior permission. Geo, the leader of the elves, acknowledges Dolan's reasons for being there and assures him he understands. However, Geo warns them to leave the forest immediately, explaining that it's far too perilous to remain. Dolan inquires if Geo is referring to the demon soldiers that have been causing chaos. Joe's troubled expression confirms his suspicions. Dolan guesses that the elves' village must also have been attacked, but from Joe's tone, it's clear that the situation here is far worse. An entire demon army threatens the elves. As Geo turns to head back to his village to aid in its defense, Christina interjects passionately. She demands to know how he plans to fight a demon army alone. Her voice rises with urgency as she insists that if what he says is true, his village is at risk of annihilation. Christina fervently pleads with Geo to allow them to help. However, her intense emotions get the better of her, and she grabs Geo by the collar, alarming the nearby elves, who immediately draw their weapons. Dolan steps in, quickly calming Christina and diffusing the tension. The elves lower their weapons, realizing that Christina's outburst stemmed from genuine concern for their plight. Moreover, the elves had earlier witnessed Christina's impressive swordsmanship during the battle against the demons, convincing them that her presence could be a valuable asset in their fight. Dolan is relieved that the misunderstanding is resolved, but the revelation of a demon army in the forest confirms his fears. The demons must have emerged from an underworld gate hidden somewhere nearby. If left unchecked, the gate would allow more demons to pour into the land. Determined to prevent further destruction, Dolan resolves to destroy the gate, even if it means exposing his draconic heritage. Though the risk of being ostracized from Burn looms, his commitment to protecting those he cares for outweighs his personal fears. Dolan approaches Geo with a proposal. He suggests that humans and elves unite to confront the demon threat. Acknowledging that elves rarely work with humans, Dolan appeals to Geo to make an exception for the greater good. Initially, Geo hesitates, citing the rules that forbid humans from entering the elven village. However, his sister, Theo, steps forward and urges him to reconsider. She emphasizes that the safety of their people must take precedence over tradition. Theo also points out that Dolan and his companions seem trustworthy and implores her brother to put faith in them. The other elves echo her sentiments, swaying Geo to their side. Reluctantly but resolutely, Geo agrees. He extends his hand to Dolan and formally introduces himself, officially requesting the group's assistance in protecting the elven village. The alliance is sealed, setting the stage for a united effort against the encroaching demon army. But just then, a loud rumbling echoes through the forest, and the sky is filled with the dark, oppressive energy. Dolan has felt something like this before, so he knows it can only mean one thing. The portal has been fully opened. As a result, powerful demons are able to cross over into this world, and they already know this means trouble. So Dolan casts a wind acceleration spell on everyone and tells them that they have to hurry back to the elf village before it is destroyed. Meanwhile, the demons that arrive through the portal are talking about how nice the freshly corrupted surface areas are and how much fun they are going to have once they start destroying stuff. They were sent here by their Dark Lord in order to clear a path for him. So Jaren reminds the others that the Dark Lord is trusting them to carry out their task flawlessly, so they have to be serious. He then notices that one of them is missing, so he asks the others if they know where George is. They tell him that George hasn't made it through the portal yet, probably because he has such a ridiculous amount of mana to transport across. So until George arrives, the others decide to have a little fun. They can sense some elves nearby, so the two of them decide to play a game to see who can find and kill the elves first. Jaren scoffs at the idea of wasting his energy on what he considers insignificant elves. However, he casually waves off the matter, giving his underlings free rein to entertain themselves with the carnage. Meanwhile, the elf village is under siege by a swarm of scout demons. The elves are holding their defensive line, but the sheer volume of attackers is slowly wearing them down. To make matters worse, Georude, a powerful demon commander, soon strides onto the battlefield. With a booming voice, he proclaims that this attack marks the beginning of a war against the surface dwellers. The elves muster their courage and launch a volley of arrows at him, but their efforts are futile. Georude is completely unfazed. With terrifying strength, he smashes through the village walls, leaving the elves vulnerable. The forest spirits relay this dire news to Geo, who realizes the situation is far graver than he feared. Determined to reach the village in time to help, Geo urges the group to pick up their pace. However, their path is blocked by a horde of scout demons, forcing them to engage in battle before continuing their journey. Back in the village, Georude takes his time tormenting the elves, delighting in their fear. Just as he's about to skewer one of his victims, thick vines erupt from the ground and wrap around him. Black roses bloom from the vines as they drain his mana and blood, sapping his strength. The force behind this attack is Deirdre, a powerful forest spirit. Her intervention buys the village precious time, as Georude struggles futilely to break free. Meanwhile, Dolan and his companions battle the swarm of scout demons with relentless determination. As the elves rain arrows down on the attackers, Dolan casts a spell that unleashes a barrage of energy bolts, decimating the ranks of the demons. Christina wields her sword with precision, cutting through the remaining enemies, while Selena uses her cursed eyes to immobilize them, giving the others an edge in battle. Amid the chaos, Geo manages to open a secret passage leading into the elf village. He directs the retreating elves to safety, then calls for Dolan and the others to follow. However, Dolan suggests they need to buy more time to ensure the villagers escape. He retrieves 2 magic stones, gifts from the earth spirit he and Selena had defeated in the past, and hands them to Selena and Christina. With the stone's immense power, Selena casts a high-level wind spell, while Christina unleashes a devastating earth spell, wreaking havoc on the remaining demons. Not wanting to be outdone, Dolan taps into his own reserves of power. Drawing inspiration from Meguru's teachings, he uses the last magic stone to cast an explosive spell that obliterates the final wave of demons in a fiery blaze. With the path finally clear, the group catches up to Geo and the other elves. Geo, having witnessed their incredible strength and teamwork, expresses his gratitude and confidence in their abilities. For the first time, he feels genuine hope that with their help, his village might yet survive the demon onslaught. Back at the elf village, Georude still has Deirdre restrained, so she begins lecturing him because of all the people he killed. Georude laughs in her face and says that while she may think killing people is a sin to him, it is an even greater sin to be weak. So all the weaklings who died at his hands deserve what they got. It's pretty ironic that he says this while his life is being drained away. So Deirdre informs him that she considers Georude weak and therefore, on top of all the lives he has taken, according to his own moral code, he deserves to die for being weak. So, Deirdre is more than happy to deliver swift justice and wipe him off the face of the earth. However, just before she could put an end to Gerude's sad life, Raphrasia arrives and causes the vines to decay. Once Georude has been released, Raphrasia commends Deirdre for being strong enough to hold Georude down like that. And Georude yells at Raphrasia, saying he didn't need her help. However, that's not what it looked like to her. Regardless, since Georude has had his turn playing with Deodora, Raphrasia wants to have some fun as well. Deirdre knows she's about to get jumped, so she decides to summon some of her eyes and calls for aid from the flower spirits of the forest. However, she gets no response. Turns out that while Raphrasia was on her way here, she ran into a bunch of flower spirits, and now there are no more flower spirits. Deirdre is filled with fury after discovering what Raphrasia has done to her beloved flower spirits. With a fierce vow of vengeance, she unleashes a barrage of vine spikes aimed at both Raphrasia and Georude. Raphrasia, however, remains unfazed, even amused by Deirdre's rage. She dismissively explains that conflict among flowers is a natural part of survival, claiming her nature as a flower spirit justifies her actions. But Raphrasia isn't a spirit of harmless surface blossoms. She embodies the sinister Raphflora flowers of the demonic realm, parasitic blooms that drain the life force of anything unfortunate enough to come near. Confident in her abilities, Raphrasia easily decays Deirdre's vine attacks by sapping their vitality. Unrelenting, Deirdre sends another vine toward Raphrasia. As expected, Raphrasia disintegrates it, but hidden within the first vine is a second, which strikes before Raphrasia can counter. The attack only scratches Raphrasia, but the minor injury infuriates her. The sight of her flawless face marred by Deirdre's attack completely shatters her playful demeanor. Furious, Raphrasia vows to make Deirdre suffer. Undeterred by Raphrasia's threats, Deirdre boldly declares her intent to kill her. But in her focus on Raphrasia, she momentarily forgets about Georude. Tired of waiting, Georude declares that he will finish Deirdre himself. Raphrasia protests, wanting to deliver the killing blow, but Georude ignores her and charges at Deirdre. Deirdre tries to block him with a wall of vines, but Georude, now familiar with her tactics, evades them with ease and slices through the wall with his spear. Forced to retreat, Deirdre jumps backward, leaving herself vulnerable. Seizing the opportunity, Reincarnation strikes, delivering a brutal kick to Deirdre's stomach. Reincarnation's attacks are particularly deadly because they sap both life force and mana from her victims. Deirdre staggers, realizing she cannot withstand the combined assault of both enemies for long. As despair sets in, she silently apologizes to the spirits she failed to avenge, resigned to her fate. But just as Georude and Reincarnation prepare to strike the final blow, a massive wave of energy crashes down from the sky, forcing them to scatter. The shockwave carves a deep scar into the battlefield, sending dust and debris flying. As the air clears, the source of the attack is revealed. Dolan stands at the ready, his expression a mix of steely resolve and righteous fury. His presence sends a clear message. The fight is far from over. The episode's story continues. We see Reincarnation and Georude have no idea who Dolan is. But when Dolan turns his back on him to check on Deirdre, Georude is offended and tries to use the opportunity to attack him while he isn't looking. However, before the spear could hit Dolan, Christina jumps in and blocks it, leaving Georude open for Dolan to strike at his neck. Dolan's attack barely wounded Georude though, and left him wide open for Reincarnation to try and grab him. But before she could, Reincarnation got hit in the face with an arrow. While they may not do much damage, this is still an elven village. So as long as they have a clear line of sight, there's no target that the elves won't be able to hit. Reincarnation is enraged that mere mortals would dare to strike her. But all of a sudden, the ground begins to shake, and over in the forest, a ton of dark energy begins emanating from the portal, meaning the final demon general has finally arrived. Now that George is here, Georude and Reincarnation are sure they won't lose. But Georude still wants to take care of these puny humans by himself, so he starts charging up his mana. However, he isn't the only one who's getting ready to attack because Selena just got here, and she's infuriated by what she sees. She immediately casts her trump card, the evil snake spell, and uses it to bind Georude in place. Reincarnation tries to stop Selena. The second Reincarnation had her back. Turned to him, Dolan cast an explosion spell and sends her flying with it. And before the combo drops, Deodora joins in and smacks Reincarnation back to the ground with a vine. Selena struggles to keep Georude immobilized, maintaining her focus as best she can while waiting for Dolan's assistance. When Dolan arrives, he immediately begins casting a flame javelin, intending to finish Georude off. Just as the spell nears completion, Dolan notices another demon rapidly approaching. Forced to abandon his attack, he redirects the javelin to intercept the incoming threat. Moments later, the new demon lands in front of Selena, introducing himself as Jaren and demanding a formal duel. His tone leaves no room for refusal, and Selena, unnerved by his imposing presence, falters in maintaining her spell. This lapse is all Georude needs to break free. Furious, Georude orders Jaren to step aside, declaring that he will personally kill Selena. Transforming his arm into a spear, he lunges at her. At the last second, Christina intercepts, deflecting the blow. This marks the second time Christina has thwarted Gerude's seemingly unstoppable attacks, piquing his interest. Intrigued, he calls her superhuman for her ability to withstand him, though Christina is unfazed by his remarks. Determined to end this, she activates her enchanted sword's power and charges at him. Georude counters, but Christina's speed allows her to slip past his defenses and deliver a decisive strike to his neck. The injury is grave but not fatal. Gerude's demonic resilience demands Christina press her assault to secure victory. Meanwhile, Selena engages Jaren with all her strength, unleashing a barrage of spells. Despite her efforts, Jaren remains unscathed, mocking her attempts. When she casts her binding spell, conjuring an evil snake to ensnare him, Jaren merely laughs, taunting her futility. He even allows her to try strangling him, demonstrating his overwhelming durability. When Jaren tires of the game, he shatters her binding spell effortlessly and swings his massive axe to end her life. Just as the blade descends, Dolan intervenes, parrying the attack with his sword. Wasting no time, Dolan delivers a powerful punch to Jaren's stomach, sending him reeling. The force of the blow surprises Jaren, who realizes Dolan wasn't even trying his hardest. Dolan's confidence suggests he could end the fight swiftly if necessary. Before Dolan can capitalize on the moment, another demon makes a dramatic entrance. George descends from the sky, exuding an oppressive aura that sends chills through everyone present. Unlike the others, George carries himself with an air of authority and menace, his appearance strikingly cool and intimidating. Meanwhile, the elf soldiers have nearly eradicated the demon scouts terrorizing the village. Yet, even with their success, the presence of the demon generals remains an insurmountable obstacle. The elves, courageous as they are, stand no chance against the overwhelming power radiating from George and his comrades. A final, decisive confrontation looms on the horizon. Back on the battlefield, George apologizes to Jaren for butting into his fight, but Jaren tells him he isn't bothered by it, mostly because he doesn't want to argue with George. George has only been here for a few seconds at this point, but Dolan can already tell that he is different from the other demons. George can also tell that there's something special about Dolan because not only does he show no signs of fear when faced with such powerful demons, he has even been able to overpower them so far. So George respects him for that, but he says that he will be Dolan's next opponent, and he's going to enjoy every minute of this fight. Dolan makes the first move, charging at George with determination. George responds with a powerful overhand swing, aiming to crush him, but Dolan manages to parry the blow with skill. Sensing the challenge, George uses his two other swords to strike from different angles, but Dolan taps into his dragon powers, deflecting each attack with precision. George briefly catches sight of the strange energy Dolan wields, leaving him confused and intrigued. Dolan, noticing George's growing awareness, realizes that his secret might be exposed. Still, he presses forward, determined to keep the pressure on. After a quick exchange, Dolan steps back and casts a point-blank explosion spell aimed directly at George. The blast is immense, but when the dust settles, George stands unharmed, his shields and swords having absorbed the brunt of the attack. Despite Dolan's lack of visible progress, everyone around him is in awe that he's holding his own against George, a being of such tremendous power. Even George himself is impressed, finding a human who can withstand him to this degree utterly surprising. He relishes the challenge, enjoying the intensity of the fight. Through the battle, Dolan comes to a realization. George isn't a demon at all, but rather a fallen angel. While this discovery is accurate, no ordinary human would be able to make such a deduction. George, in turn, guesses that Dolan must be an ancient being, something far beyond the scope of a mere human. Dolan refuses to confirm or deny this, but it becomes clear that if George is going to fight seriously, Dolan cannot win in his human form. The risk of unleashing his dragon powers, however, would be catastrophic, potentially leveling the entire elf village. George charges once more with full force, and Dolan is forced into a defensive stance, narrowly avoiding a fatal blow. After a tense moment, Dolan spots an opening in George's attack and strikes, landing a blow to his chest. But the damage is minimal, and George seems unfazed, instead beginning to gather his mana for a devastating special move. Just as Dolan prepares to counter, Georude and Raphrasia launch a surprise attack, attempting to take him down while he's distracted. Selena and Christina rush to Dolan's aid, but Jaren blocks their path, declaring they'll have to get through him first. As the attacks from Georude and Raphrasia descend on Dolan, it seems certain that he will be overwhelmed. Yet, Dolan refuses to let his human body be the end of him. He taps into his dragon powers, unleashing a surge of energy that crushes Georude and Raphrasia out of the sky, eliminating the threat in an instant. With his foes dispatched, George apologizes to Dolan for the disruption but assures him that it won't happen again. He then prepares for his ultimate attack, his mana surging as he aims to unleash it directly at Dolan. Selena yells and panics as the slash closes in on him, but Dolan doesn't seem to be worried about it at all. He just smiles and unleashes a portion of his true strength to cut the slash in half and parry it into the sky. All this has barely made Dolan break a sweat yet, but as much as George enjoying himself is still a man of principle, so he refuses to let this fight go on any longer since he knows Dolan can't fight at full strength. His attention is divided because he's worried about his friends being hurt, and he isn't able to use his full power without causing a lot of collateral damage. Taking this into consideration, George decides to postpone his indolence fight for a couple of days to ensure that there is nothing holding either of them back. He plunges one of his swords into the ground to get everyone's attention and makes an announcement for all to hear. Finding such a worthy opponent today has put him in a good mood, so he is giving the inhabitants of this forest a choice to make. They must have realized by now that they stand no chance of surviving against the 4 demon generals. So instead of fighting to their deaths, George is giving them the option to join forces with him. He will give them 3 days to make their decision. But when he returns, he will be bringing an entire army with him. He then calls for Jaren, Georude, and Rafrasia to withdraw from battle immediately. They are all disappointed that they won't get to finish off their prey. They obey George's orders regardless and withdraw from the village. Although they vow to seek revenge next time, George warns them that he will only grant them a few days as a mercy. Once that time passes, nothing will stop him from finishing his battle with Dolan. Dolan, undeterred, promises not to hold back when they meet again. With that, George and the other demon generals retreat, flying back to their base. Once the demons have left, Selena rushes to Dolan, embracing him tightly, relieved that he's still alive after facing George. Dolan reassures her that he was never truly in danger and doesn't have a single scratch on him. His main concern is for Selena and Christina's well-being. Selena, feeling a sense of relief, assures him that she's fine, and soon Christina joins them, confirming the same. She says she has plenty of questions but will wait to ask, knowing Dolan likely has a lot on his mind. Christina also points out that Geo and the others seem eager to speak with him. Geo leads the group to the village chief's residence, and as they walk through the village, the elves watch them in silence. The heavy atmosphere is understandable, given that many of their kin perished in the recent demon attack. They soon arrive at the residence of the village chief, where they are greeted by Dio, the chief himself. He expresses gratitude on behalf of the village for Dolan's role in saving Marl earlier. Dio introduces himself and the other leaders present: Vlaic, the Wolfman, and Alcien, the Arachne. These leaders represent the various tribes in the forest. They've heard of Dolan's immense strength, but to understand him better, they've called upon someone who can speak to his character, Headmistress Olivia. The story continues and they ask Olivia what she's doing here, so she explains that she was born and raised in this village. So although she left it ages ago to live in the outside world, as soon as she heard that it was under attack, she came running back to offer her assistance. Since the three already seem to be acquainted with Olivia, Dio doesn't waste any more time on introductions and begins explaining the plan he had in mind. He has no intention of waiting for the days that George proposed. So he says that by midday tomorrow, he will gather all the village troops that are still capable of fighting and lead them into the forest to destroy the demonic gate. The only reason the demons are able to stay in this realm is because of the energy the gate supplies them with. So if the gate is destroyed, they will be forced out of this world, and the forest will naturally be able to cleanse itself of the dark energy that has infected it. Dolan acknowledges Dio's concerns but reassures him that he's still ready to fight alongside the elves. However, Dio insists that this is a matter for the elf village alone and that involving outsiders is no longer an option. Vlaic challenges Dolan, questioning whether he's underestimating the village's strength. Normally, he'd be offended, but after seeing Dolan's power in battle, he understands that such help would be invaluable. Vlaic argues that while the village's rules about outsiders are important, they won't mean anything if the village is destroyed. In these dire circumstances, they should be begging for Dolan's assistance, as he might be their only chance at victory. Alcien agrees with Vlaic and expresses her desire for Dolan, Christina, and Selena to assist. Olivia adds her support, emphasizing that the three are the best hope the village has against the demon threat. She had requested reinforcements from the capital, but they won't arrive in time. Until then, the village must rely on Dolan's group. Dio, now understanding the situation, reluctantly agrees to accept their help. Dolan can see Dio's genuine desire to protect the village, and he's willing to do whatever it takes to ensure their survival. Meanwhile, near the demonic gate, Georude is throwing a tantrum, slaughtering demon soldiers in frustration over his defeat by Christina. Rafrasia, likewise, is venting her anger for being hit by Deirdre. Jaren attempts to calm them, reminding them that the soldiers are hard to replace. However, George, unconcerned, allows them to vent. He believes the demons need practice and is sure they're eager for a rematch. Jaren shares the sentiment, especially regarding Selena, and George is excited to face Dolan again, convinced that their next battle will be even more thrilling. Jaren is surprised by George's words, as the latter usually only enjoys fights with powerful demons or celestials. George had been uncertain at first, but after witnessing Dolan's mana, he is now certain of his true identity. Years ago, when George was still an angel in the Army of Arts, they were engaged in a battle against creatures created by the fallen gods. The fight wasn't going well, and the angels feared they might lose. However, Myril summoned an old ally for assistance, an ancient dragon who struck fear into the hearts of demons throughout the realm. As Dolan crossed the battlefield, George stood in awe, mesmerized by the legendary dragon's power. This dragon had single-handedly defeated the invading demons, and to this day, his name is feared in the demonic realm. George doesn't understand why such a legendary being is now in human form, but he's certain their battle will be the most exhilarating fight he's ever had. That same night, Dolan heads out into the village's flower garden to look for Deirdre, and once he finds her, he says there's something he wanted to take care of before the battle tomorrow. Deirdre tells him she's not in the mood to talk right now, but before she realizes it, that Dolan is already right in front of her. He knows that Deirdre is still wounded from the fight yesterday, so they ask her to let him take a look. Wounds inflicted by someone like Refrasia aren't easy to get rid of. And sure enough, as Deirdre stops covering herself, a massive rotting hole in her stomach has revealed. Dolan is shocked that Deirdre is still able to walk around with such a severe injury, but he should be able to take care of it with a little bit of his life energy. He places his hand over Deirdre's wounds, and once he begins healing it, the wounds close up and go back to normal. She can't believe that Dolan is able to heal the wounds so easily, so she asks him if he's really human. After all, Dolan doesn't deny that he may not be your average human, but he would appreciate it if Deirdre continued treating him as one. Deirdre doesn't want to pry into Dolan's affairs any more than necessary, so she turns back to the flower garden and stares off into the distance. Dolan noticed Deirdre's solemn expression and asked if she was mourning someone. Deirdre explained that she was grieving the loss of many beautiful flower spirits that Refrasia had killed during her rampage. She couldn't let that go and was determined to seek revenge for what Refrasia had done. Dolan, understanding her pain, offered his help in her quest for vengeance. Deirdre didn't respond immediately but expressed her appreciation for Dolan's offer and was grateful for the chance to talk with him. Afterward, Dolan returned to the village guest house where the others were waiting. Theo and Mill had come by to visit, bringing floral tea for everyone to enjoy. They had also prepared a meal for Dolan, and Selena volunteered to bring it to him. Dolan was touched by their hospitality and took his first bite of the meal. He immediately loved the comforting flavor and complimented Theo on her cooking skills. Christina, equally fond of the meal, practically devoured her portion in one go. Selena marveled at how much Christina could eat without worrying about gaining weight. Christina explained that her constant exercise balanced out the extra calories she consumed. Still, Selena found it hard to understand how Christina managed to stay both thick and slim at the same time. She admitted she was a little jealous of Christina's figure. Theo, overhearing, laughed and told Selena she had nothing to be jealous about, especially considering how flat she was in comparison. The conversation shifted to the girls' curves, and Dolan, who had been eyeing them the whole time, was caught staring. The girls quickly noticed and asked him to stop. Dolan apologized, explaining that their serious discussion about curves had compelled him to take a closer look. Theo let it slide but reminded them all that they had to wake up early the next day, so they decided to end the conversation and head to bed. Selena offered to handle Dolan's dishes, and as he passed them to her, he noticed her hands were trembling. Something seemed to be troubling her. Later that night, Dolan woke up to find that Selena wasn't in her hammock. He got up to search for her and found her sitting on the terrace, gazing at the sky. When she saw him approaching, she asked if he couldn't sleep either. Dolan was about to explain that he had come out to find her, but he noticed she was still shaking. Trying to comfort her, he told her he couldn't sleep either because he was worried about what lay ahead. Selena seemed relieved to hear that she wasn't the only one feeling anxious. She invited Dolan to join her, explaining that this spot had become her favorite place in the village. Dolan didn't quite understand what she meant at first, but as soon as he stepped outside, he was struck by the breathtaking view of the village. It was his first time seeing the village from this perspective, and it made him appreciate its beauty even more. He sat down beside her and began apologizing, feeling guilty for dragging her into this conflict, especially since she wasn't suited for warfare. Selena reassured him, saying she wasn't afraid to fight as long as it was to protect her friends. However, the real source of her anxiety was that during the last battle, she had the chance to kill Georude, but she couldn't bring herself to do it. All she needed to do was use her powers to end his life, but something had stopped her. Despite all the harm Georude had caused the elves, she couldn't bring herself to take his life. She feared that her inability to kill might lead to even more people getting hurt. Although she knew the demons were evil, she couldn't imagine taking their lives. As a Lamia, she felt she was failing her role. Dolan admits that Selena doesn't fit the usual Lamia stereotype since Lamias are known to be a lot more cold-blooded when it comes to these kinds of things. But if Selena weren't this kind as soft-hearted, then Dolan would have never thought about welcoming her to his village, and they would never have gotten to know each other so well. He tells her that she doesn't need to change anything about herself, but in case she's still worried about tomorrow, he has something he wants to give her. So he pulls out a bracelet and says it's a gift for Selena. It looks like the gem on the bracelet is a magic crystal, but there's something off about it since it has several times the magic power that a normal magic crystal would have. Dolan tells her that this is a crystal he made himself, and the production method is secret, so he can't tell her how he made it. But he is sure it will be useful to her in tomorrow's battle. So he assures her once more that she has nothing to fear. Selena thanks Dolan for being so thoughtful, and the two just kind of stare at each other for a while until Christina comes out and throws a blank blanket over them. She woke up and heard them talking out here, so she didn't want them to end up catching a cold. Plus, she thinks it's unfair that the two of them came out here to enjoy this amazing view without her. Selena laughs and invites Christina to join them, so she gets under the blanket, and the three of them all look out over the elf village. The beautiful scenery serves as a reminder of what they are fighting to protect, and that's when Selena stands up and declares that she isn't going to let herself waver anymore. She's made up her mind to do whatever it takes to keep this village safe, and even if it means she has to kill, she will not hesitate this time. Christina feels the same way and vows to cut down all evil alongside Selena. Now that Selena has gotten over her worries, she practically passes out. Dolan takes her back to bed and tucks her in. He's glad to see that she's finally feeling better, and so is Christina. But before they go back to bed as well, there's something Christina wanted to talk to Dolan about. During her fight with Georude, he kept calling her a superhuman. So she asked Dolan if he has any idea what that could mean. It looks like Dolan knows something about it, but he hides his ignorance and tells Christina that he's never heard about it before, so says it's fine and they heads to bed for the night. The next morning, the village warriors gathered, filled with determination to avenge their fallen comrades. They immediately set out to assault the demonic gates, splitting into groups to attack the main gate and 3 auxiliary gates. The elves, Beastkin, and Arachne would handle the auxiliary gates, while Dolan, Selena, and Christina were tasked with destroying the main gate. Along the way, demons appeared, prompting Geo and his team of elves to break off and engage them, allowing Dolan and the others to continue toward the gate. Unexpectedly, Selena stepped out of the carriage, announcing that she was going to assist Geo and the elves with the demons. Dolan and Christina were concerned about her going alone, but Selena reassured them, confident in her ability to handle the task. With her assurance, they agreed to continue their mission while she stayed behind to help with the demons. This time, Selena was sure she could succeed. The story continues. We see George had been expecting them to attack, so he already sent all his subordinates to defend the various gates. And he can't wait to finally have an all-out fight with Dolan. Meanwhile, Georude is confronted by the combined force of the elf village at one of the subsidiary gates. But at the other gate, only Diodora confronts Raphrasia because she's personally invested in this and needs to make sure she takes Raphrasia down with her own hands. Meanwhile, Geo and the remaining elf soldier tried to take Jaren down, but they soon realized this was a horrible idea because Jaren is single-handedly demolishing them, and he's barely even trying. Jaren tells them that their feeble attacks are never going to hurt him, and he's not wrong either because he's completely unharmed. While the others are on the verge of collapse, the elves don't want to give up though, so they take aim at him one more time. However, before they could fire, a bunch of giant rocks fall from the sky and crush Jaren. Selena was the one behind this, but even she was surprised because her attack was way more powerful than it usually is. Theo was surprised to see Selena here, since she thought she'd be heading for the main gate with the others. But Selena had a feeling Jaren would be too much for the people here to handle on their own, so she decided to come help a little. That being said, her spell may have been powerful, but it still wasn't enough to take Jaren down. So he busts himself out of the rocks. He recognizes Selena's magic, and he's excited to get to fight her again, so he hopes she puts up more of a struggle this time. Selena is still nervous about fighting him, but since Dolan believes in her, she's going to believe in herself as well and fight with everything she's got. As Dolan and Christina made their way to the main gate, Christina couldn't shake her worry about Selena. Despite being with Geo and the others, she wasn't sure if Selena could hold her own against Jaren. Dolan, too, shared her concerns, but he noticed the determination in Selena's eyes. He knew she was doing her best to find the strength to face her fears. Wanting to encourage her, Dolan tried to offer as much support as he could, but Christina's anxiety only deepened. She was convinced that Selena might be in over her head, and for a moment, she considered turning back to help her. Dolan stopped her, confident that Selena could handle things on her own. He reminded Christina that he had given Selena a powerful magic stone to boost her strength, making her much stronger than before. Still, Christina couldn't shake her unease. Just as she was about to turn back, the carriage driver announced that they were nearing the next subsidiary gate. Meanwhile, Georude was causing chaos. He was toying with some of the background warriors, taking his sweet time and enjoying the destruction he caused. He even had enough time to mockingly toy with one of the soldiers before moving toward the Spider Girls. Just as he was about to continue his cruel antics, Christina arrived, crashing her carriage straight into him. Dolan, still heading toward the main gate to face George, couldn't assist, but Christina was confident she could handle this on her own. Christina quickly ordered the Spider Girls to gather the survivors and evacuate. Georude, now recovering from the crash, was surprised to see Christina there. He had been hoping for a chance to fight Dolan, but he'd gladly take the opportunity to crush her in the meantime. Christina, however, had no intention of playing games. She needed to finish this quickly so she could catch up to Dolan. Without hesitation, Christina summoned all her power and unleashed a devastating strike with her sword, aiming to finish Georude off swiftly. Georude, clearly relishing the fight, declared that this would be a battle to the death. He charged at her, his spear aiming for a lethal strike. Christina dodged and countered with a slash, but Georude blocked it. The two continued to clash, exchanging strikes and dodges. Eventually, Christina landed a clean blow to Georude's head, leaving a noticeable dent. Georude, impressed by her strength, remarked on her abilities, calling her a superhuman, a term Christina didn't quite understand. Meanwhile, Dolan was closing in on the main gate. He believed Christina could take care of Georude on her own, but he wanted to minimize casualties. To save time, Dolan partially transformed and took to the skies with his dragon wings, hoping to reach the gate faster. Back at the battlefield, Raphrasia and Diodora were preparing for their own confrontation. Raphrasia, eager to avoid any interruptions like the last time, created a dome to isolate them. She then began summoning her toxic mist, but Diodora wasn't about to let that happen. With a swift motion, she created a small windstorm that dispersed the mist, much to Raphrasia's surprise. Raphrasia, though impressed, warned Diodora that the mist was just one of her many tricks. She conjured an energy ball and launched it toward Diodora. Diodora quickly realized that Raphrasia was using the souls of the flower spirits she had killed to fuel her attacks, generating powerful life force blasts. Raphrasia had no intention of letting up, and she seemed to be enjoying the torment she was inflicting on Diodora, repeatedly hitting her with the energy blasts. Diodora was enraged. She could feel the pain of her fallen comrades' souls being used against her, and the anger pushed her to her limits. But at the moment, she had no means of countering these energy blasts. All she could do was block and absorb the hits. Raphrasia, on the other hand, wasn't about to run out of energy. She was constantly draining the life force from her surroundings, and it seemed as though she could keep this up indefinitely. But Diodora wasn't one to give up so easily. If Raphrasia wanted to play the energy-draining game, Diodora was more than capable of answering. With a determined look in her eyes, she unleashed a power she had sealed away long ago. The dark energy surged within her, and though she had hoped never to use this ability again, the threat Raphrasia posed left her with no choice. Diodora prepared herself for the next phase of the battle, ready to face Raphrasia with everything she had. The battle was far from over, and the stakes were higher than ever. Dolan, Christina, and the rest of the warriors were determined to take down the demonic forces and protect the village, but the true test of their strength had only just begun. Raphrasia is surprised to find out that Diodora has the same ability as her, but she still believes she is superior. So she challenges Deirdre to a soul-sucking contest to see who can suck the other dry first. Both of their soul-sucking energies clash, and it looks like they're evenly matched at first. But Raphrasia eventually overpowers Deirdre, so she begins sucking the soul right out of her body, and she's loving every minute of it too. It may look like Diodora is losing here, but this went exactly as she planned, because even if Raphrasia has absorbed a large portion of Diodora's soul, Diodora already has a sure hit attack prepared, so there's no way she can lose. Raphrasia thinks Deirdre is just bluffing because she's about to lose her soul. But just then, Raphrasia feels an unbearable pain in her cheek, and a couple of seconds later, a black rose sprouts from her face. Raphrasia screams out in agony, but shortly thereafter, dozens of black rose vines emerged from her body and began encasing her. Raphrasia doesn't understand how this could possibly be happening. So Deirdre explained that when they fought yesterday, she implanted really tiny rose seeds in Refrasia's body. Those rose seeds have been multiplying until Diodora made the sprout out of her body. She knew Refrasia would never be cautious enough to account for an attack from within her own body. So the victor of this fight has been decided before it even began. The roses continue to grow and wrap around Refrasia by the second, and despite her best efforts to free herself, Refrasia ends up being crushed to death and absorbed by Diodora. Diodora has successfully gotten her revenge, but she's so exhausted that she can barely move, and there are a lot of demon soldiers around her. So this might be the end for her. Luckily, Dolan arrived just in time, unleashing a barrage of energy blasts that wiped out the remaining demons and spared Deirdre from further harm. After ensuring that Deirdre was safe, Dolan cast a healing barrier around her, allowing her to recover. At the same time, he used his magic to destroy the subsidiary gate, clearing the way for their advance. As Deirdre slowly regained consciousness, she asked what had happened. Dolan explained that she had passed out, so he placed her in a healing circle. As long as she stayed there, she would be protected from any demon attacks and would eventually regain her strength. Grateful for his care, Deirdre thanked Dolan, though he insisted she didn't need to thank him. Then, Deirdre asked a question that had been on her mind. She was curious about what Dolan truly was. Dolan explained that, despite appearances, he was just a human. However, the wings she noticed weren't a mere decoration. They were the result of his soul still being that of a dragon from his previous life. This revelation clicked for Deirdre, and she marveled at the thought of meeting a dragon reincarnated as a human. Still weakened, Deirdre attempted to stand but lacked the strength. Dolan gently told her to rest a little longer. As he turned to leave, Dolan informed her that he was heading to confront George. Deirdre expressed a desire to accompany him, but Dolan politely declined, explaining that he would be flying there, and she wouldn't be able to keep up. Determined, Deirdre insisted that he just carry her along. Dolan stared at her for a moment before bluntly stating that it would be easier to face George without Deirdre slowing him down, as she was in no condition to fight. With a sigh, Deirdre reluctantly wished him luck in his battle, but she cautioned him to be careful. Now that she knew he was a dragon, she was certain he would win, but she worried that he might accidentally unleash too much power and destroy the entire forest. Meanwhile, the elves were doing their best to hold Jaren off, with Theo and Geo working quickly to tend to Selena's injuries. Selena was barely conscious, but as she slowly regained awareness, she glanced at her tail and was horrified to see a massive hole in it. The shock caused her to faint once more. With none of them possessing healing magic, Geo debated whether it would have been better to leave the branch in her, but he ultimately decided to pull it out. This left Selena with a gaping wound that could lead to her bleeding out. However, thanks to the magic gem Dolan had created, which had an automatic healing function, Selena's injury began to close up almost immediately. Geo and Theo breathed a sigh of relief, thankful that Selena was going to be okay. But there was no time for celebration. Jaren was closing in, and Theo and Geo knew that they needed to act fast. They decided to sacrifice themselves to give Selena a chance to escape. They carefully lifted her and told her that if she ran in a certain direction, she should be able to make it out of the forest unharmed. Selena, however, refused to abandon her friends. She wasn't in any condition to fight, but she couldn't leave her comrades behind. Theo, determined to ensure her survival, made it clear that Selena had to escape for the sake of the mission. Elsewhere, Christina was still battling Georude. She had been able to deal some significant damage, but he was still standing strong. She asked him how long he planned to drag the fight on. Georude, clearly entertained, replied that he had expected more of a challenge since Christina was a superhuman, but she had far exceeded his expectations. Christina, still confused about what being a superhuman meant, asked Georude to explain. Georude, surprised that no one had told her what she was, decided to enlighten her. He explained that superhumans were the pinnacle of the human race. Despite being human, they possessed abilities and intelligence far beyond ordinary people. Naturally, this made them a threat to those around them, and many would ostracize or even try to eliminate superhumans out of fear. Christina, of course, understood this all too well. But superhumans weren't just feared for their intellect or abilities. They were dangerous because, given enough time, they could amass enough power to defeat demons or even gods. Georude recalled an ancient tale of a dragon god being slain by a superhuman hero and couldn't believe his luck in encountering one himself. Christina, processing this new information, didn't know what to make of it. The idea that she was considered a superhuman, a being capable of such power, was overwhelming. But she wasn't interested in the theory behind it. She wanted to focus on the fight at hand. Georude, however, seemed to enjoy the discussion. He was eager to see what else Christina could do, now that he understood the true nature of his opponent. So he asked Christina to show him what the full power of a superhuman can do. Now Christina recalls some memories from her past and finally understands what she is. And she even says, "I understand it now." So, Georude is guaranteed to lose in the span of a couple of seconds. Christina proceeds to chop all of Gerude's arms and legs off. And he can't even complain because she did it with such efficiency that he's forced to admire that strength. As Christina finally beheads Georude, she recalls how the hero and dragon god used to be friends, but the hero betrayed his friends, so the dragon god must present the hero for what he did. Over by the main gate, Dolan finally faces off against George, and George is giving him the utmost respect because he truly feels honored to get the chance to fight someone as great as Dolan. However, he knows Dolan won't be able to utilize his full strength while he's in this world, so he invites him to come through the gate and enter the demon realm so he won't have to worry about collateral damage. The story continues as Dolan and George both descend into the demon realm. We cut back to Selena's fight, and she is still having an internal dilemma because she doesn't want to hurt her enemy, but she knows that if she doesn't do anything, then her friends will be hurt instead. Theo told her to run away, and honestly, every cell in Selena's body is telling her to run away too, but she knows she can't abandon her friends. Theo and the others are trying to buy Selena some time to escape, so Theo used a plant-binding spell to hold Jaren in place while the others target him. Jaren is impressed with the teamwork these guys are showing, but teamwork can only get you so far when you lack power. All this time, Jaren hasn't even been taking the fight seriously, but he's getting bored of humoring these weaklings, so he shows the full extent of his abilities and produces stick-spike tendrils from his stomach. He tells them that he is able to freely alter the form of his body to suit his needs, meaning he can be very creative in the way he slices them up. On the other side of the trees, Selena can hear the agonizing screams of her friends, and she can't bear to hear them suffer, but she is still in terrible condition, so she can hardly move at all. Even so, her friends need her, so she looks to the bracelet Dolan gave her and hopes he gives her the strength to do what she needs to do. At that moment, Jaren had nearly beaten Geo to death, growing bored as Geo was too weak to offer any real resistance. He was about to finish him off when, out of nowhere, Selena appeared, using an earth chain to trap Jaren. Geo and Theo were both shocked to see her, especially since they had expected her to run for her life. Selena, however, was determined to fight alongside them. She was far from ready to abandon her friends. Jaren, excited to face off against Selena again, immediately attacked her with his tendrils. But Selena wasn't backing down. She summoned her snake spirit, slicing through Jaren's tendrils, and then unleashed a colossal titan fist to send him flying. As Jaren stumbled back, Selena instructed Theo and Geo to retreat, warning them about the potential collateral damage from her battle. Reluctantly, the two fell back. Jaren, recovering from the blow, was eager for more. He was enjoying the fight now that Selena was no longer holding back. But Selena wasted no time with words. She summoned an airstrike, the attack causing only minor damage to Jaren. It was simply a distraction, allowing her to prepare her real attack. Selena began chanting a spell to activate her cursed eyes. Once she locked eyes with Jaren, he froze in place. With the power of her snake spirits fully unleashed, Selena struck, and Jaren realized too late that this wasn't going to end well for him. In a desperate attempt to break free, Jaren fought against the snakes, but Selena's enhanced power, thanks to Dolan's magic gem, made the snakes overwhelming. Jaren was reminded of Dolan himself as the snakes exuded immense power, and in the next moment, Jaren was overwhelmed, defeated at last. Selena had won and protected her friends as promised. Meanwhile, Dolan had finally arrived at his designated battleground with George. The area was barren and lifeless, but George, who had claimed this as his domain, dismissed the desolate surroundings. He explained that he was merely a mercenary working for the royal family of the underworld, and he didn't have the luxury of hiring a landscaper. Regardless, George was eager for the fight. He drew his sword, anticipating the chance to challenge the first primordial dragon. Dolan, acknowledging the challenge, warned George that once defeated, he would erase him from existence. George made the first move, charging toward Dolan. But as Dolan prepared to counterattack, George sensed the threat and retreated at the last moment. Instead of a direct confrontation, he opted for a long-range attack, unleashing a heaven and earth-cleaving slash. However, Dolan effortlessly countered the strike, shattering it with ease. The battle was just beginning, and George was starting to realize the magnitude of his opponent's power. Back in the overworld, Selena, Theo, and Gio were making their way to the first gate to reunite with Dolan. Along the way, they encountered Christina, who was relieved to see that everyone was safe so far. Deirdre soon joined the group, explaining that she had left Joe's squad to pursue someone she needed to avenge. Gio, now concerned about Dolan's whereabouts, asked if anyone knew where he was. Christina explained that Dolan was at the main demon gate, facing off against George. The group agreed that they needed to hurry and assist him in any way they could. At the main gate, Olivia had just arrived and, noticing no one was around, assumed Dolan had entered the gate to battle George. As she surveyed the area, she came across a magic circle on the ground with a gem in it. Just then, the village leaders appeared, having finished dealing with the demon soldiers in the area. They asked where George was, hoping to join the fight. Olivia told them that George had entered the gate with Dolan to have a proper showdown. Alcien, overhearing this, saw an opportunity to end the threat once and for all. She proposed that they seal the gate while George was inside, ensuring he would be trapped in the demon realm. However, this would also trap Dolan, cutting off any chance of his return. Vlaic was appalled at the idea, unable to believe Alcien would suggest abandoning Dolan after everything he had done to protect them. But Alcien, though aware of the dishonorable nature of such a decision, argued that it might be necessary. She reasoned that it was better to sacrifice one person than risk the lives of everyone in the forest once more. The stakes were high, and tensions were rising. As the group debated their course of action, the fate of Dolan, George, and everyone else hung in the balance. Meanwhile, in the demon realm, George is giving everything he's got to fight Dolan. But Dolan is effortlessly parrying his attacks, and then proceeds to land a gut punch so devastating that it completely shatters George's mask. George gets sent flying and crashes into some nearby rocks, but he isn't done yet, so he gets back up because he still wants to show Dolan the extent of his swordsmanship. Outside the gate, the others arrive, and as soon as they hear the village leader's plan to close the gate while Dolan is still in there, they immediately oppose the idea. They can't even believe that the elders are willing to consider such an idea, but the elders justify their decision, saying that their priority is to restore peace to this forest, and while this gate is open, there's no guarantee that even stronger demon will show up. Plus, if Dolan were to lose his battle, then it would be catastrophic for them. Selena yells that she is sure Dolan would never lose, but as much as Alcien wants to believe that, she has no guarantee that Dolan is going to win. Even so, Selena tells that if Dolan was confident enough to fight George alone, that he must surely have a means of winning. If he was scared that he might die, then he would have just waited for reinforcement from the kingdom to arrive. But instead, he chose to fight with his life on the line, so they can't betray him like this. Deirdre agrees with Selena on this and tells the elders that if they are cowardly enough to abandon their friend just to avoid the demons, then they will lose all pride they once held. The inhabitants of this forest, seeing that everyone believed in Dolan to such a degree, the elders decide to take back their decision and bet everything on Dolan's victory against George. As the battle rages on, George refuses to accept defeat, still believing that he can land a hit on Dolan. He unleashes his signature slash technique, confident that at least one of the strikes will find its mark. However, Dolan effortlessly dodges every single attack, leaving George frustrated. Desperate, George shifts tactics and attempts to hit Dolan with an energy wave. Though Dolan could easily dodge the blast, he decides instead to counter with an energy blast of his own, sending George flying. The force of the blast is so immense that it catches the attention of a powerful demon queen in the demon realm. But Dolan remains focused on his fight with George, undeterred by the growing threats around him. As George attempts a sneak attack from behind, Dolan's patience finally snaps. Without hesitation, he begins cutting off George's arms, one by one, before delivering a swift final blow, slicing George cleanly in half. The cut is so precise that George's death is delayed, giving him a moment to reflect on his life. In his final moments, Dolan acknowledges George's fighting spirit, though he does not respect him as a person. The praise from the dragon god moves George to tears. Dolan tells him that this is his punishment for the lies he spread when he invaded the forest, and George accepts his fate, regretting nothing. He feels that, in the end, this is the best death he could have hoped for. Dolan's fight is over, but trouble is far from finished. The battle has drawn the attention of the Demon Queen, who, like George, is eager for another confrontation with the dragon god after many years. Back in the overworld, everyone nervously watches the portal, waiting to see who will emerge. To their relief, Dolan steps through the portal, unharmed and victorious. Selena, overjoyed to see him safe, rushes to greet him. Afterward, Dolan helps the group destroy the main gate, ensuring that the demon threat is finally over. A large celebration is held in the village to honor their savior. The village elders, deeply regretful for almost abandoning Dolan, offer sincere apologies. Dolan, however, brushes off their concerns, not expecting any kind of celebration. Gio remarks that it's only right to honor a friend who fought so hard for them, and though they wish Dolan could stay, they understand that he has a home to return to. Suddenly, Theo appears, having convinced both Selena and Christina to wear special outfits for the occasion. She asks Dolan for his opinion. Dolan, ever straightforward, silently acknowledges how much he likes what he sees, his focus unbroken. A few of the elf girls then pull Christina away to dance with them, leaving Selena standing alone. Theo nudges Dolan towards Selena, encouraging him to ask her to dance. Dolan approaches Selena and asks if she would like to join him. She happily agrees, and as they dance, Selena shares the story of her battle with Jaren. She explains that, initially, she had planned to run away, despite her earlier declaration. She wasn't strong enough to win, but when she held the magic stone Dolan had given her, she felt his protection, as though he was standing behind her. She thanks him for everything he has done for her. As the night draws to a close, the celebration winds down, and Selena, too drunk to stay awake, falls asleep in Dolan's lap. Dolan, content with the evening, prepares to head to bed. However, he hears a beautiful song drifting through the air, piquing his curiosity. He follows the sound and discovers that it's Christina singing. The song tells the tale of heroes slaying a seemingly evil white dragon. When Christina notices him, she apologizes for disturbing him. Dolan reassures her that there's no need to apologize. He loved her singing. Curious about the song, Dolan asks where she learned it. Christina tells him the song has been passed down through her family for generations. When Dolan inquires whether there's more to the song, like what happened to the hero after slaying the dragon, Christina becomes visibly uncomfortable. The next morning before their departure, Deirdre gives a gift to Dolan and says thank you for saving my life. Before the conversation can continue, Deirdre suddenly steps forward, revealing a special gift for Dolan. She leans in and kisses him on the lips, much to Selena's embarrassment and frustration. Selena, upset that Deirdre got to him first, shouts at her and demands to know what she's doing. Deirdre defends herself, explaining that Dolan saved her life, and it was only natural for her to express her gratitude in this way. Selena, though still flustered, can't help but feel a twinge of jealousy as the night's events take another unexpected turn. Dolan and the others eventually make it back to the village. It feels really good to be home, so Dolan decides to go visit his family to talk to them about everything that happened. But as soon as he opens the door, he gets stabbed through the chest from behind. He falls to the floor in a pool of his own blood. The episode's story continues, and the next morning, Dolan wakes up as if nothing happened and goes about his usual activities. All dragons in this world trace their origins to one particularly ancient dragon. He's been around since the beginning of time, long before the gods of the world came into existence. As the oldest creature in the universe, he witnessed all sorts of things that the gods ruling the earth's going to the Departy and cradles burning Olympus to the ground. After seeing all this, the ancient dragon realized that it was all alone and grew jealous of the lives of the gods. So it decided to split its spirits off into different pieces. Its tail, wings, fangs, and head became different powerful dragons. And as for the ancient dragon's heart and soul, it became an especially powerful dragon that led over the others. This dragon was Dolan in his previous life, but he leaves that part out of the story. Once he's done with his story, the kids excitedly run off to continue playing. So Deirdre asked him if he's the resident storyteller or something. Dolan explained that he would usually just tell his stories to his little brother. But then all the kids in the village started showing up to listen to him. Theo tells Dolan that she loved his story because, from the way he told it, it's almost as if he actually saw all the dragons in person. Since they are done with story time, the group starts walking through the village together, and it looks like Burn Village has been pretty popular recently. Dolan attributes the sudden boom into the fact that the people from the elf village have been visiting ever since the demon incident was resolved. Dolan and the others are pretty much the reason the elf village wasn't destroyed by the demon invasion, so of course, the elves will want to visit the home of their saviors to meet them. Just then, one elf runs up to Dolan and asks him to shake her hand, while another starts fawning over Christina, but this isn't the best time for them to an autograph. So Deirdre politely tells the girls to come back later since Dolan and Christina are busy right now. The girls, understanding the situation, quietly leave without causing any drama. Once they've gone, Deirdre playfully teases Christina, who has started blushing from all the attention. Selena steps in, trying to stop Deirdre's teasing, but this only makes Deirdre shift her focus to teasing Selena instead. To Selena's surprise, she doesn't mind it and finds herself enjoying the playful banter. Later, everyone gathers on a few benches to share lunch. While eating, Selena asks Dolan if he'd like to join her on a hunt in the forest later. Dolan, always up for an adventure, agrees, but points out that since Selena is already going, there won't be much for him to do. Selena, unwilling to let Dolan off the hook that easily, comes up with an excuse, telling him that he owes her a favor for drinking something she gave him earlier. With little choice, Dolan agrees to join her, though he vows to be more careful in the future when accepting gifts from her. That evening, the hunting party sets out, and Selena is eager to impress Dolan. They soon come across a bear den, and without hesitation, Selena uses her snake magic to draw the bear out. Balin and his group immediately spring into action and kill the bear. Dolan watches in disbelief and shouts for them to stop, as the bear was simply minding its own business. Balin, however, retorts angrily that all monsters are dangerous and must be eliminated. Dolan is disturbed by his words, but when Selena echoes the same sentiment, he realizes something is terribly wrong. Back at the village, Dolan heads to tend to his fields as usual. However, to his shock, all the crops have withered. Just then, Eri approaches, looking confused. She asks Dolan what he's doing, and he's thrown off by her question since he's always tended to the garden. Eri, however, seems unaware of why Dolan is still working in the fields, especially when the village is supposed to be abandoned soon. Dolan is stunned by this news and asks Eri why they would leave. Eri doesn't have all the answers but reveals that everyone is preparing to abandon the village that very night to search for new homes. Dolan is baffled. Why would they leave now, especially when there's no immediate danger? Determined to get answers, Dolan heads to the town hall, where the village leaders are gathered. He confronts the village chief, demanding to know why they've decided to leave. The chief, with a sense of finality, tells Dolan that the decision has already been made. The villagers will soon begin looking for new homes. Dolan, unable to comprehend why they would leave the village they've called home for so long, presses them for an explanation. The chief and the others coldly reveal that they never truly considered the village their home, and Dolan's confusion deepens. The following day, Dolan encounters a couple who had only recently moved to the village. He asks them if they're leaving, and they confirm they are. They explain that, with a child to care for, it's safer for them to find a new home. When Dolan tries to see their baby, the couple pulls the child away from him, a strange, out-of-character reaction. They say their goodbyes and leave with their carriage, followed by other villagers. Dolan stands there, uncertain of what to do as more people depart. Even Grandma Meguru, always a presence in the village, is packing up her things. When she sees Dolan reading one of her books, she offers it to him, telling him he can keep it since she no longer needs it. Eri asks Dolan what his plans are, and he firmly replies that he won't be leaving the village. Eri is surprised, wondering if Dolan is sure about staying, especially since the village will soon be empty. But Dolan insists he won't leave no matter what. Later that evening, the last of the villagers prepare to leave. Even Dolan's family is preparing to leave. They ask him once again if he's sure he doesn't want to come with them. Dolan, resolute in his decision, tells them that he has no intention of abandoning the place that has been his home for so long. He's determined to stay and keep the village alive, even if it means being the only one left behind. He asked his family to send him a letter when they find a new home so he can come visit them, but his mother doesn't think he will actually ever visit them after all. She knows he's special. A little while later, pretty much everyone in the village has left, but Christina is still here, so she comes over to Dolan and calls him pathetic for refusing to move on from this village. And once again, Dolan gets the feeling that something is wrong since Christina would never insult him like that. As Dolan walks through the now empty village, it is really starting to set in that the home he once knew is gone. The last person still here is Selena, so Dolan heads to her house and finds her in the middle of making a pot of soup. She was just about to go look for him so she could share the soup, but since he's already here, she asks if he wants to join her for a bowl of soup. It probably won't be as good as the soup Dolan made for her when they first met, but it might at least make him feel better. Dolan thanks her for being so thoughtful, but all of a sudden, they hear a loud explosion coming from all the way across the village. Both Dolan and Selena rush over to figure out what's going on, and to their surprise, they see Christina standing before Dolan's burning house. Dolan asks Christina if she's the one responsible for setting his house on fire, and Christina happily confirms that she was responsible. And she even got a bunch of villagers to help. Since Dolan doesn't want to leave the village, she figured she could force him to leave by burning everything he loves to the ground. But Dolan yells that regardless of whether he has a house or not, he's never going to leave this village. Christina, frustrated with Dolan's decision, storms off and heads toward his fields, intent on burning something else to try and change his mind. Dolan stops her by grabbing her wrist, his voice rising in confusion and anger as he demands to know why she would do such a thing. Christina coldly responds that once Dolan leaves the village, the fields will serve no purpose anyway, so there's no harm in destroying them. Dolan, unable to understand what's gotten into Christina, turns to Selena for help, hoping she will help him talk some sense into her. But when he looks around, his heart sinks. Selena has her bags packed and is ready to leave the village as well. Dolan pleads with her not to go, insisting that they could have a happy life together here. But Christina interrupts, calling him pathetic for refusing to face reality. She harshly tells him that no one wants to be around him, that his human act is full of lies, and everyone knows what he truly is. They would never want to be associated with him again. The weight of her words crushes Dolan, plunging him into a deep despair. All the years he spent helping the village, giving everything for the people he cared about, now feel like they were in vain. Voices in his head whisper that he was only fooling himself and that no one ever loved him. Then, Dolan suddenly awakens in his old dragon form, sitting alone in a volcano, surrounded by the smoldering ashes. Confused and disoriented, he notices that the wounds from the hero who killed him are gone. Was everything he experienced as a human just a dream? The voice in his head tells him it was, reassuring him that he is the great dragon, meant to protect mankind, and that's the only purpose he will ever serve. Though Dolan doesn't want to accept this reality, he begins to lose hope of ever living with humans again, resigning himself to solitude as the voice demanded. But then, a familiar voice calls out to him from the smoke. It's Selena. This is her first time seeing Dolan in his dragon form, yet she immediately recognizes him, seeing the same Dolan she knows and loves. His doubts about his human life being a dream start to fade. Selena's presence proves everything was real. Still, Dolan is puzzled by how she ended up in this place. Selena, equally confused, explains that she fell asleep, hoping to see Dolan when she woke up, only to find herself in this strange place instead. Dolan asks if she really remembers him, and Selena fondly recounts their time together. How they first met when they took down an earth elemental, how they worked together to help the village accept her, and how everyone welcomed her with open arms. Whenever she was scared, Dolan was there to give her strength, and whenever danger arose, he always protected her. Moved by these memories, Selena asks Dolan to lift her up to his face. As he does, she wraps her arms around him in a tight hug and thanks him for coming into her life. But Dolan is the one who should be thanking her because having Selena in his life has been one of the best things to ever happen to him. Selena suddenly starts feeling really sleepy, even though she's already asleep, but Dolan tells her she doesn't need to worry since by the time she wakes up, it will already be morning. He then sends Selena back to the real world, and now that he has confirmation that everything he experienced with her was real, he knows that this whole thing has just been a nightmare. He has a good idea about who is behind it, the fallen goddess of destruction, Calavith. And if she's here, he assumes she must be looking to fight him like she did in his past life. That brings the episode to an end. Thanks for watching. If you like the recap, then don't forget to subscribe to the channel for more such content. Turn on notification bell.